Hello and welcome back to English in Advance. I am your host, Jessica, and I am so happy you are here with me today. Whether you are listening on your morning walk, driving to work, or just relaxing at home with a cup of tea, I want you to take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders. Today we are going to do something very special. We are not just learning grammar rules. We are not just memorizing lists of vocabulary. Today, we are going to learn how to connect with people. We are going to learn how to tell a simple story in English. You might be thinking that storytelling sounds difficult or complicated, like writing a novel, but I promise you it is not. Storytelling is actually the most natural way to speak. Think about your native language. When you talk to your friends, you are telling stories. You say things like, "Guess what happened to me yesterday," or "Let me tell you about my weekend." That is a story. And today, I'm going to show you how to do that in English to improve your speaking flow. When you can tell a simple story, your English sounds much more fluent. It sounds smooth. It sounds like music. Many students speak in short, broken sentences. They say things like, "I went to the store," "It was good," "I bought milk." This is correct English, but it feels a little robotic. It does not flow. Today we are going to fix that. We are going to take those simple sentences and weave them together into a beautiful tapestry of speech. By the end of this episode, you will have the tools to talk about your day, your memories, and your experiences with confidence. So, are you ready to become a storyteller? Let's begin. The first secret to telling a good story in English is to keep it simple. You do not need big fancy words. In fact, simple words are often better because they are clearer. The most important thing is the structure. Every story, even a tiny one about drinking coffee, has 3 parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. It sounds obvious, but when we are nervous speaking English, we often forget this. We jump around in time. We get confused. So let's focus on the beginning first. The beginning of your story sets the scene. It tells the listener who, where, and when. This is the foundation. If you do not have a strong foundation, the house falls down. So when you start speaking, tell me when it happened. Was it yesterday? Was it last summer? Was it 10 years ago? Let's practice this right now. Imagine you want to tell me about a trip to the beach. Do not just say, "I went to the beach." Start with the time. Say, "Last Saturday I went to the beach." Can you hear the difference? It immediately pulls the listener in. It gives us context. Now add the who. Who were you with? I went to the beach with my family. Now we have a clear picture. Last Saturday, Jessica went to the beach with her family. Now let's add the where. Maybe it was a specific beach. Last Saturday, I went to the beautiful Sunnyside beach with my family. This is a perfect beginning. It is simple, but it is complete. I want you to try this. Think about what you did yesterday, just yesterday. In your head or out loud if you can, say a sentence that includes the time, the place, and the people. I will give you a second. Did you say it? Maybe you said, "Yesterday morning, I went to the coffee shop with my friend." That is perfect. Now that we have the beginning, we need to move to the middle. The middle is where the action happens. This is where we need to be careful with our grammar. Usually, when we tell stories, we use the past tense. This is the biggest challenge for many learners. You have to switch your brain from the present to the past. You cannot say, "I go to the beach and I swim." You must say, "I went to the beach and I swam." It takes practice. But do not worry about being perfect. Even native speakers make mistakes when they are telling stories quickly. The goal is communication. To make the middle of your story flow, you need magic words. We call these linking words or transition words. These are the bridges between your sentences. Without bridges, your story is just a list of facts. With bridges, it is a journey. The most common linking words for stories are first, then, next, after that, and finally. These are simple, but they are powerful. Let's go back to our beach story. We have our beginning where last Saturday I went to Sunnyside Beach with my family. Now let's use our linking words. First, we found a good spot on the sand. Then we put on our sunscreen. After that, we ran into the water. Can you hear the rhythm? First, then, after that. It carries the listener forward. It tells the listener the order of events. This is what creates that speaking flow you want. If you just said, we found a spot, we put on sunscreen, we ran in the water, it sounds choppy. It sounds like a robot. But when you add then, we put on sunscreen, it sounds human. It sounds natural. I want to practice this sequence with you. I want you to imagine you are making a cup of tea or coffee. This is a very simple process, but it is a great way to practice flow. Listen to me first. First, I boiled the water. Then, I put the tea bag in the cup. After that, I poured the hot water in. Finally, I added some sugar. Do you see how easy that is? Now I want you to try. Imagine your morning routine. What do you do when you wake up? Use the words first, then, and after that. Speak it out loud. First, I woke up. Then, I brushed my teeth. After that, I ate breakfast. Doing this simple exercise every day will train your brain to think in sequences. It will make your English speaking much faster because you will not have to stop and think about what comes next. The linking words give you time to think. While you are saying, then, your brain is preparing the next part of the sentence. Now, a good story usually has a little bit of a surprise or a problem. We call this the conflict. It does not have to be a big fight or a disaster. It can be something small. Maybe you forgot your keys. Maybe it started to rain. Maybe the coffee was too hot. This makes the story interesting. To introduce a problem, we use the word but or suddenly. Let's go back to the beach. We were swimming and having fun, but suddenly dark clouds appeared in the sky. Oh no, now the listener is interested. They want to know what happened next. The word suddenly wakes up the listener. It changes the direction of the flow, or use. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, it started to rain. These emotion words add flavor to your English. Instead of just facts, you are sharing feelings. This brings me to the next important tool for storytelling, which is adjectives. Adjectives are the colors of your story. If you paint a picture with only gray paint, it is boring. If you use blue, red, yellow, and green, it is beautiful. Adjectives work the same way. Do not just say, the food was good. Say, the food was delicious. Do not just say, I was happy. Say, I was thrilled or I was excited. Let's try to improve a boring sentence together. Imagine the sentence is, I saw a dog. It was big. This is grammatically correct, but it is not a story. Let's add some color. Let's add some flow. Yesterday, while I was walking in the park, I suddenly saw a massive, fluffy dog. Can you feel the difference? Massive is a better word than big. Fluffy tells us about the texture. Walking in the park gives us context. This is how you advance your English. You take the simple skeleton and you put meat on it. Let's talk about the ending of the story. The ending needs to feel finished. You cannot just stop talking. The listener will wait for more. You need a signal that the story is over. You can use the word finally or in the end, or you can give a summary of how you felt. Let's finish our beach story. It started to rain, remember? So what happened? So we quickly packed our bags and ran to the car. Finally, we drove home while listening to music. Even though it rained, we had a wonderful time. That last sentence is the conclusion. It wraps everything up. It tells the listener the story is done now. You can relax. A great way to end a story is to reflect on the experience. Phrases like, "It was a day to remember," or "I learned a lesson that day" are very common in English. Now I want to give you a full example. I want you to just listen to the flow. Close your eyes if you can. Listen to the verbs. Listen to the linking words. Listen to the adjectives. Here's a story about a time I lost my phone. Listen carefully. A few months ago, I had a very stressful morning. It was a Tuesday, and I was running late for work. First, I grabbed my bag and rushed out the door to catch the bus. I was walking very fast because I did not want to miss it. Then I got on the bus and sat down. I reached into my pocket to get my phone to listen to a podcast, but suddenly my heart stopped. My pocket was empty. I checked my bag. Nothing. I checked my coat. Nothing. I started to panic. I thought I had lost my phone forever. Unfortunately, the bus was already moving. I could not get off. I felt terrible and anxious. After that, I arrived at work and immediately called my house phone from the office. My roommate answered. She laughed and told me that my phone was on the kitchen table. I felt so relieved. In the end, it was a silly mistake, but it taught me to always check my pockets before I leave the house. Did you follow that story? It was simple, right? But it was engaging. Let's break it down. I started with when, using a few months ago on a Tuesday. I used linking words like first, then, but, suddenly, unfortunately, after that, and in the end. I used adjectives describing feelings like stressful, anxious, relieved, and silly. And I used the past tense verbs like grabbed, rushed, reached, checked, and felt. This is the formula. You can use this formula for anything. You can tell a story about buying groceries. You can tell a story about a job interview. You can tell a story about your cat. The subject does not matter. The structure matters. I know that speaking is harder than listening. When you listen to me, you understand. But when you try to speak, the words get stuck. This is normal. It is called the passive versus active vocabulary gap. You understand thousands of words, but you only use a few hundred when you speak. To close this gap, you need to practice active storytelling. Here is an exercise I want you to do. It is called the 1-minute story. Every evening before you go to sleep, I want you to record yourself on your phone, just for 1 minute. Tell the story of your day. No one else has to hear it. It is just for you. Start with, "Today I woke up at." Then describe 2 or 3 things you did, and finish with how you felt. Do this for 1 week. At the end of the week, listen to your first recording and your last recording. You will be amazed. You will hear that your flow is smoother. You will hear that you are using more connecting words. You will hear that your confidence is higher. Why does this work? Because you are training your brain to retrieve English words quickly. You are building muscle memory in your mouth. Speaking is a physical act. Your tongue and lips need to practice moving in English ways. Let me give you another tip for improving your flow. It is called shadowing. I am sure you have heard of this, but are you doing it? Shadowing means repeating what a native speaker says exactly how they say it, almost at the same time. You can do this with this podcast right now. When I say a sentence, pause the audio and say it back. Try to copy my melody. English has a music. We go up and we go down. We stress certain words. For example, in the sentence, I went to the store, we usually stress the word store. I went to the store. We do not usually say I went to the store like a robot. We glide. I went to the store. Try to mimic that glide. If you copy the music of the language, your storytelling becomes much more attractive to the listener. It is easier for them to understand you. Let's try a little shadowing practice right now with a short story segment. I will say a sentence, and I want you to repeat it immediately with the same emotion. Ready? Here we go. One day, I decided to bake a cake. Now you say it. One day, I decided to bake a cake. Good. Next sentence. I mixed the flour, sugar, and eggs in a big bowl. Your turn. I mixed the flour, sugar, and eggs in a big bowl. Great. Next one. But when I looked in the oven, it was cold. Repeat that. But when I looked in the oven, it was cold. And the last one. I had forgotten to turn it on. Your turn. I had forgotten to turn it on. Excellent. Do you feel that rhythm? The up and down? That is what makes a story come alive. Another thing that helps with flow is avoiding the perfection trap. Many students stop speaking because they are afraid of making a grammar mistake. They are telling a story and they think, oh no, did I say went or go? Was that the right preposition? And while they are thinking, they stop talking. The silence becomes awkward. The flow is broken. Here's the truth, my friends. Native speakers do not care about your tiny grammar mistakes. If you say, yesterday I go to the store, we understand you. We know you mean the past. It is better to keep the flow going with a small mistake than to stop completely to be perfect. Flow is more important than perfection for connection. When you flow, people relax. When you stop and start constantly, people get tired listening. So push through. If you make a mistake, just keep going, or correct it quickly and move on. Do not apologize. Do not say, oh, sorry, my English is bad. No, you are communicating. You are telling a story. Be proud of that. Let's talk about vocabulary for a moment. To tell better stories, you need to build a bank of storytelling phrases. We talked about first and then, but there are more advanced ones too. If you want to sound really professional, you can use phrases like, it all started when, or you will never believe what happened. These are great hooks. A hook is something that catches the listener's attention. Imagine you are at a dinner party. You want to tell a story. You can say, let me tell you a story. That is okay, but it is better to say, the funniest thing happened to me last week. Immediately, everyone looks at you. They want to know what was funny. You have hooked them, then you can begin your structure. It all started when I was walking to the train station. You can also use time phrases that are not just yesterday. You can say the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, or way back in 2010. These phrases add variety. And if you are telling a story about something that happens often, you can use usually or normally. But remember, a specific story about one event is usually more interesting than a general description. General description is I usually go to the gym. Story is last Tuesday at the gym, I dropped a weight on my toe. The story is better because it has action and conflict. We love drama, even small drama. I want to address a common problem. Sometimes we get stuck in the middle of a story because we do not know a specific word. You are telling a story about cooking and you forget the word for spatula or oven. What do? Do you stop? No, you describe it. This is a vital skill for fluency. It is called circumlocution. It means talking around the word. If you forget the word umbrella, you say, the thing you hold over your head when it rains. If you forget the word wallet, you say the small bag for my money and cards. Native speakers do this too when we forget words. So if you are telling your story and you get stuck, describe your way out. Say, I put the cake in the hot machine for cooking, the oven. This keeps the conversation moving. It keeps the flow. Let's practice expanding a very short story into a longer, more detailed one. This is how you practice elaboration. A level 1 story is I bought a shirt. It was red. I liked it. This is boring. Let's add details. A level 2 story is last weekend I went to the mall to buy some new clothes. I found a really nice shirt. It was bright red. I decided to buy it because it fit perfectly. Better. Now let's go to level 3. A level 3 story is last weekend. I decided to treat myself, so I headed to the big shopping mall downtown. I was looking for something special to wear to a party. After looking in 3 different shops, I finally found exactly what I wanted. It was a gorgeous, bright red cotton shirt. When I tried it on, I felt so confident. It was a little expensive, but I bought it anyway because I loved it. See the difference? Level 3 is full of life. It has emotion like confident and loved it. It has motivation like treat myself and for a party, and it has sequence like after looking in 3 shops. When you practice, try to take a simple sentence and ask yourself why and how. I bought a shirt. Why? For a party. How? I went to the mall. How did it look? Bright red. Answering these questions helps you generate more English. Let's focus on the emotional connection again. Stories are about shared human experiences. When you tell a story about being late, everyone understands because everyone has been late. When you tell a story about a delicious meal, everyone understands hunger and satisfaction. Use this to your advantage. Use phrases that invite the listener to agree with you. Phrases like, you know what I mean? Or, have you ever had that happen? Make the story a conversation. It makes the listener feel included. For example, I was so tired after work. You know what I mean? The listener will nod and say, yes. Now you are connected. You are not just a student speaking English, you are a person sharing a feeling. This is the ultimate goal of learning a language. Now I want to talk about the speed of your speech. Flow is not speed. Fast does not mean fluent. In fact, if you speak too fast, you might make more mistakes, and people might not understand you. Flow is about the connection between words, not the speed of the words. It is okay to speak slowly. Think of a river. A river flows. Sometimes it is fast, sometimes it is slow, but it never stops moving. That is how your English should be. Do not rush. Give yourself time to pronounce the ends of the words. Give yourself time to breathe. When you rush, you get anxious. When you are anxious, your brain shuts down. So, slow down. Enunciate. Enjoy the words. Speaking of enjoying the words, let's talk about the power of the pause. Many English learners are afraid of silence. You feel that if you stop talking for 1 second, you have failed. But in storytelling, silence is a tool. It is like the white space on a page. It gives the listener a moment to digest what you just said. It can also create suspense. Imagine I say I opened the door and saw a cat. That pause before a cat makes you wonder, what is there? Is it a monster? Is it a ghost? No, it is a cat. But the pause made it exciting. So when you are telling your story, do not be afraid to take a breath. Pause after a big sentence. Pause before a surprise. It shows that you are in control of your English, not that you are lost. It gives you authority. Now let's move to another technique that makes your stories advanced, but is actually quite simple to do. It is adding dialogue. Dialogue means speaking for the people in your story. Instead of just describing what happened, you say exactly what someone said. This makes the story feel like a movie. Let's look at the difference. You could say, my boss was angry and told me to redo the report. That is fine. It is factual. But try this instead. My boss walked into my office, slammed the door, and said, Jessica, you have to redo this report right now. Do you see how much more energy that has? You are not just reporting, you are acting. You can change your voice a little bit. You can show the emotion. When you use direct speech, the grammar is actually easier because you do not have to change the tenses. In reported speech, you have to change is to was and can to could. It gets complicated, but in direct speech, you just repeat the words. He said, I am hungry. It is simple. So try to remember one specific thing someone said in your story. It brings the characters to life. If you are telling a story about a taxi driver, tell us what he said. Maybe he said, the traffic is crazy today. That one little sentence transports us into the taxi with you. It adds realism. Let's practice this. Think of a conversation you had today, maybe with your partner or a colleague or a shop assistant. Think of one sentence they said. Now frame it in a story. I went to the bakery and asked for a croissant. The baker smiled and said, I am sorry, we are all sold out. That is a perfect little story segment. It has a location, an action, and dialogue. The dialogue creates the conflict. You wanted a croissant, but you could not have one. It is a tiny drama. To make your stories even more vivid, we need to engage the 5 senses. We've talked about adjectives, but often learners only focus on what things look like. They say it was big, small, red, or beautiful. But we have 4 other senses, which are sound, smell, taste, and touch. A great storyteller uses all of them. Let's take a simple setting, like a rainy day. You can say, it was raining. Or you can say, I could hear the rain tapping on the window. I could smell the wet earth. The air felt cold and damp on my skin. Now the listener is not just knowing about the rain, they are feeling the rain. Let's try to describe a favorite food. Do not just say the pizza was good. Tell me about the smell. The smell of melted cheese filled the room. Tell me about the sound. The crust crunched when I bit into it. Tell me about the taste. It was salty and spicy. When you focus on sensory details, your vocabulary expands naturally. You stop looking for complex academic words, and you start finding descriptive, real-world words like crunch, sizzle, soft, rough, sweet, and sour. These are the words that stick in people's minds. I want to do a visualization exercise with you now. I want you to close your eyes again if you can. I am going to describe a scene using the senses, and I want you to imagine it. We are walking into a forest. First, look up. You see tall green trees blocking the sun. Now listen. You hear birds singing high above and dry leaves crunching under your feet. Now take a deep breath. You smell pine needles and fresh dirt. Touch the tree bark. It feels rough and scratchy. Do you have that picture in your head? Now, I want you to try to describe your own place, maybe your kitchen. What does it smell like in the morning? Coffee? Toast? What do you hear? The refrigerator humming? The radio? Describing your environment is a fantastic way to practice English every single day without needing a partner. You can narrate your life. As you walk to the kitchen, say out loud, "I can hear the kettle boiling." It is a high whistling sound. Another important aspect of storytelling flow is how we handle time. We already talked about first and then, but sometimes we need to talk about things that happened before the story started. This is where we use a little bit of the past perfect tense, but we will keep it simple. We use had plus the past participle. Imagine you arrived at the cinema, but the movie started before you got there. You would say, "When I arrived, the movie had already started." This little word had is very useful. It sets the timeline. It tells the listener, this happened before that. It clears up confusion. Let's try an example. I went to the party, but I was hungry because I hadn't eaten all day. If you just said, "I didn't eat all day," it is okay, but "hadn't eaten" clarifies the sequence. It explains the feeling in the moment. You do not need to stress too much about the grammar rules. Just remember, if you want to explain a reason for a past feeling, had is often your friend. I was tired because I had worked hard. I was happy because I had passed the test. This adds depth to your story. It gives the why behind the what. Now, let's talk about a very popular topic for stories, which is travel. Everyone loves to hear about travel adventures. Travel stories are great for English learners because they follow a natural structure. You leave, you arrive, you do something, you come back. Let's build a travel story template that you can use. Part 1 is the destination and the reason. Last summer, I went to Paris because I have always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. Part 2 is the journey. The flight was very long and tiring, but I watched 3 movies. Part 3 is the arrival and impression. When I finally arrived, I was amazed by the architecture. Everything looked so old and elegant. Part 4 is the highlight. The best part was eating a crepe near the river. It tasted like heaven. Part 5 is the mishap. Remember, we need a little problem. But I got lost on the metro. I was confused for about 20 minutes. Part 6 is the resolution. Luckily, a kind stranger helped me find my way. Part 7 is the conclusion. I was so tired when I got back to the hotel, but I was happy. You can take this template and change Paris to Tokyo or New York or Grandma's house. You can change flight to train or car. The structure remains the same. Having these mental templates helps your flow because you know where you are going. You are not wandering around in your sentences. You have a map. Let's explore another topic, which is childhood memories. This is a very rich area for storytelling. We often use the phrase "used to" for childhood stories. I used to play in the park. I used to love ice cream. I used to be afraid of the dark. Used to implies that it happened in the past but does not happen now. It is a very nostalgic and beautiful phrase. Let me tell you a short childhood story. When I was a little girl, I used to visit my grandfather every Sunday. He lived in a small house with a big garden. We used to pick apples together. One day I climbed the tree and I could not get down. I was stuck. I started to cry. My grandfather came out, laughed, and helped me down. He gave me a big hug and said, "You are a brave little climber." I loved those Sundays. Notice the mix of used to for repeated actions like we used to pick apples and the simple past for the specific event, like one day I climbed. This mix creates a perfect texture for memory stories. Try to think of one thing you used to do, just one, and tell a simple story about it. I also want to address the fear of boring the listener. Sometimes students say, "But Jessica, my life is boring. I have no stories. I go to work. I come home. I sleep." I disagree. Your life is full of stories. You just have to look closer. A story does not have to be about fighting a bear or winning the lottery. A story can be about a strange man you saw on the bus. It can be about burning your toast. It can be about a funny misunderstanding. The best stories are often about relatable, human moments. Did you try to fix something and break it more? That is a great story. Did you misunderstand a word in English and say something funny? That is a fantastic story. We love to laugh at mistakes. It brings us together. So do not think your life is boring. Think of it as a source of material. Observe the world around you like a reporter. To help you find these stories, I recommend keeping a tiny notebook or a note on your phone. When something interesting happens, just write down 3 keywords. For example, cat, rain, umbrella. Later, when you have time to practice your English, look at those 3 words and try to reconstruct the story. This is called prompt practice. The words trigger your memory. You are not reading a script. You are creating one from your memory. This is true fluency. Fluency is the ability to take a thought and turn it into sound without too much hesitation. Let's talk about another transition technique called the summary transition. Sometimes you want to skip a boring part of the story. You do not need to tell us every detail of your 8-hour bus ride if nothing happened. You can use phrases like, "The journey was uneventful, so," or "to make a long story short," or fast forward to. For example, I got on the plane. The flight was 12 hours long. I slept most of the way. Anyway, when I landed, see how I used anyway? Anyway is a magic button. It means, let's get back to the interesting part. It tells the listener that you are skipping the boring details. This shows that you respect their time. It keeps the flow moving fast. We should also discuss body language. You might think, "Jessica, this is an audio podcast. Why body language?" Because your body affects your voice. If you are hunched over, tense, and looking at the floor, your voice will sound small and unsure. If you sit up straight, smile, and use your hands, your voice sounds energetic and open. Even if you are on the phone, the other person can hear your smile. It changes the shape of your mouth. So when you practice your stories, stand up. Walk around the room. Use your hands to show big or small. Pretend you are talking to a room full of friends. This physical energy will transfer into your English fluency. You will feel less stuck. Now let's go back to the idea of fillers. In every language, people use filler words. In English, we use, teachers often tell you to never use them. I say, be careful with them, but do not ban them completely. Native speakers use them all the time. If you use while you are thinking, it is natural. It signals that you are not finished. But if you say, I went to the store and bought milk, then it is too much. It becomes distracting. A better alternative to is a short phrase like, "How can I say this?" or "Let me think." This sounds much more sophisticated. It buys you time, but it keeps you sounding smart. Example, I saw let me think. It was a type of bird, but I don't know the name. This is much better than I saw a bird. Learn these buying time phrases. They are your safety net. Other examples are, "What is the word I am looking for?" or "It is on the tip of my tongue." These are fluent phrases about not being fluent. I want to give you a challenge for the next few days. It is the 3 sentences challenge. Whenever you speak to someone in English, or even if you are just texting or writing a comment online, try to write at least 3 sentences. Do not just say I agree. Say I agree with you. That is a very interesting point. I had a similar experience last year. By forcing yourself to extend your answer, you are practicing flow. You are moving from a reaction to a story. The first sentence is the reaction. The second is the reason. The third is the elaboration or story. This is a very easy rule to follow, but it will transform your English from basic to intermediate or advanced very quickly. Let's try this challenge with a hypothetical question. Imagine I ask you, do you like summer? Basic answer is yes, I do. 3 sentences answer is yes. I absolutely love summer. It is my favorite season because I love swimming in the ocean. Every July, my friends and I go to the coast for a week. See how rich that is. You practiced absolutely, which is an adverb, because which is a linking word, and a habit story. You did all that in 10 seconds. Now let me tell you another story, but this time I want you to pay attention to how I describe feelings. Feelings are the heart of a story. Last winter, I had a very embarrassing experience. I was at a fancy restaurant with my colleagues. I was feeling very nervous because I wanted to make a good impression. I ordered soup. I was trying to be very polite and elegant. But my hand slipped. The spoon fell into the soup with a loud splash. Red tomato soup flew onto my white shirt. I was mortified. My face turned bright red. I felt like I wanted to disappear under the table. Everyone looked at me. For a second, there was total silence. Then, my boss started to chuckle. Then everyone started laughing. I took a deep breath and decided to laugh too. It was awkward, but it broke the ice. In this story, look at the words for feelings such as nervous, polite, elegant, mortified, and awkward. Mortified is a strong word for very, very embarrassed. Learning these specific emotion words helps you tell your truth. If you just say, I was sad for everything, it is not precise. Were you disappointed? Were you lonely? Were you heartbroken? Were you grief-stricken? Each word paints a different shade of blue. Let's do a quick vocabulary check for feelings. Instead of happy, try thrilled, delighted, or over the moon. Instead of sad, try down, upset, or miserable. Instead of angry, try annoyed, furious, or frustrated. Instead of scared, try terrified, anxious, or nervous. Try to use one of these new words in your next story. I was absolutely furious when the bus didn't come. It sounds so much stronger than I was angry. As we continue, remember that listening is the fuel for speaking. To become a better storyteller, you need to listen to stories. Listen to podcasts like this one, but also listen to interviews. Listen to how celebrities tell stories on talk shows. They are professional storytellers. Notice how they exaggerate. Notice how they use their hands. Notice how they smile. You can learn a lot by observing. Do not just listen to the words, listen to the performance. Also, read simple stories. Graded readers are books written specifically for English learners. They are excellent because the vocabulary is controlled, but the story structure is perfect. Reading helps you see the linking words and the past tenses in action. When you read, read out loud. I cannot stress this enough. Reading in your head is passive. Reading out loud is active. It connects your eyes to your mouth. Let's practice another short narrative, this time focusing on a future plan. Storytelling isn't always about the past. Sometimes we tell the story of what we want to do. We use going to or would like to. Next year, I am going to learn how to play the guitar. First, I am going to buy a cheap second-hand guitar. Then I plan to watch video tutorials online every evening. I know it will be difficult at the beginning. My fingers will probably hurt, but I really want to play my favorite songs. In the end, I hope to play a song for my family at Christmas. This is a story of the future. It has a beginning, a process, a conflict with fingers hurting, and a goal. Practice telling the story of your next weekend. On Saturday, I am going to, then I will, it is going to be, it helps you organize your life and your English at the same time. One final technique for this section is the repetition for effect. Sometimes repeating a word or phrase makes the story stronger. It was cold. It was so cold. I waited and waited and waited. He ran and ran until he couldn't breathe. This repetition shows intensity. It is not a mistake. It is a style choice. It tells the listener that the cold was extreme, or the wait was very long. You can use this to emphasize the most important part of your experience. I was tired. I was so incredibly tired. It adds weight to your words. So, we have covered pauses, dialogue, the 5 senses, time templates, childhood memories, and emotion words. You are building a toolkit. A carpenter has a hammer, a saw, and a drill. You have adjectives, linking words, and past tenses. The more tools you have, the more beautiful the house you can build. And the house is your story. Do not try to use all these tools at once. You will get confused. Just pick one for today. Today, say to yourself, I will focus on using first, then, after that. Tomorrow, say, I will focus on describing smells and sounds. Step by step, you will improve. I want to remind you that your accent is not a barrier to storytelling. Some students hate their accent. They think it ruins the story. It does not. Your accent is part of who you are. It is your identity. As long as you speak clearly with good flow and intonation, people will enjoy listening to you. Do not let the fear of your accent stop you from sharing your voice. The world wants to hear your stories. Your unique perspective is valuable. Now take a deep breath. We have covered a lot of ground. I want you to shake out your shoulders, relax your jaw. We are going to continue exploring more ways to refine your speaking flow. We are going to look at how to handle interruptions, how to correct yourself smoothly, and how to tell jokes in English. Yes, jokes. They are mini stories. But first, let's solidify what we have learned. Think of the 1-minute story I mentioned earlier. Have you thought of your topic for tonight? Maybe it will be about listening to this podcast. Let's dive into the world of humor. Telling a joke in a foreign language is one of the hardest things to do, but it is also one of the most rewarding. A joke is simply a very short story with a surprise ending. The structure is setup, punchline. The setup gives the information. The punchline breaks the expectation. You do not need to be a comedian. You just need to understand the rhythm. Let's look at a very simple English joke structure. It often involves 2 people talking. For example, a patient says, "Doctor, I have a strawberry growing out of my head." And the doctor says, "That is easy. I can give you some cream for that." Now, why is that funny? It is a play on words. Cream goes on strawberries, but cream is also medicine. To tell this well, you need to pause before the punchline. You say, "That is easy." Pause. "I can give you some cream for that." Practicing simple jokes helps you master timing. Timing is the space between words. If you rush the punchline, the joke fails. If you wait too long, it becomes awkward. It teaches you to control the listener's attention. But storytelling is not always a monologue. In real life, when you tell a story, people will interrupt you. They will ask questions. They will laugh. They will say, "Wait, I do not understand." This is where your flow can get broken if you are not prepared. You need strategies to handle interruptions and get back on track. We call these recovery phrases. If someone interrupts you and you answer them, how do you return to your story? You can say, "Anyway, as I was saying," or "Where was I?" "Oh, yes," or to get back to the point. Let's practice this. Imagine you are telling a story about your car breaking down. You say, "I was driving on the highway and smoke started coming out of the engine." Your friend asks, "Was it your blue car?" You answer, "No, it was my old red one." "Anyway, as I was saying, smoke was coming out everywhere." That little phrase. "Anyway, as I was saying," acts like a steering wheel. It turns the car back onto the road. Learn this phrase. Use it. It gives you command over the conversation. Sometimes you are the listener. To keep the flow of a conversation going, you need to show you are listening. We call this active listening or back-channeling. If you sit in silence with a blank face, the storyteller thinks you are bored or you do not understand. They will stop talking or they will slow down. To keep them speaking, you need to make little sounds like, "Uh-huh, really? Wow, no way," or "You are kidding." These short interjections act like gasoline for the storyteller. They encourage them. If you want to improve your English conversation flow, learn to be a good audience. When you say "really," with surprise, the speaker gets excited. They give you more details. They use more complex language because they feel safe. It is a cycle. You give energy, they give story. Try it next time you listen to English. Even if you are watching a movie, when a character says something shocking, say, "No way," out loud. It trains your immediate emotional response in English. Now, let's get a little technical, but keep it very simple. We need to talk about linking sounds. Flow happens when words stick together. In English, we do not say every word separately. We connect the end of one word to the beginning of the next. The most common link is consonant to vowel. Look at the phrase "woke up." The K in woke moves over to the U in up. It sounds like woke up. Look at turn on. It sounds like turn on. Look at it is. It sounds like itis. When you tell a story, if you separate these words, you sound choppy. If you say "I woke up" and "turn on the light," it is hard to listen to. But if you link them, "I woke up" and "turn on the light," it sounds smooth. It sounds liquid. I want you to practice this sentence, "I went out at 8. Separately, it is "I went out at 8. Linked, it sounds like "I went out at 8. Can you hear the difference? It sounds like one long word. This is the secret to that fast, fluent sound native speakers have. We are not speaking faster. We are just removing the spaces between the words. Let's apply this to a story sentence like "He picked it up and put it in." Connect the sounds so it becomes "He picked it up and put it in." Try saying that. Picked it up. Put it in. It feels funny at first, maybe like you are speaking a nonsense language, but this is the music of English. When you master linking, your storytelling becomes effortless because your mouth doesn't have to stop and start. It just glides. Another aspect of flow is what we call fillers or hesitation devices, which I mentioned briefly before, but let's go deeper. Sometimes you need to correct yourself in the middle of a story. You say the wrong thing. Do not panic. Do not stop. Use a self-correction phrase like "I saw him on Tuesday," or "It was a huge building." Actually, it was more like a small house, or "He was very rude," or rather, "He was just stressed." The phrases "actually" and "or rather" are beautiful tools. They allow you to fix your mistake while keeping the rhythm going. It shows you are thinking and refining your story in real time. It is very advanced behavior. A beginner stops and looks confused. An advanced speaker says, "Actually, let me rephrase that." Let's talk about comparisons using similes. Similes make your story colorful. Instead of saying he was fast, say he was as fast as lightning. Instead of saying I was hungry, say I was as hungry as a wolf. Or it was as easy as pie. These are cliches, yes, but they are very common and understood instantly. You can also make up your own. The car was as old as a dinosaur. The room was as quiet as a library. Using as adds imagery. It paints a picture. And remember, storytelling is painting with words. Let's try a story with comparisons. The exam was difficult. I was sweating like a pig. The room was as hot as a sauna. The ticking of the clock was as loud as a drum. I felt like a tiny boat in a big storm. But when I finished, I felt as light as a feather. Can you see the images? Sauna, drum, boat, feather. These concrete nouns make the abstract feelings of nervousness and relief real. Now I want to address the hero's journey. This is a classic storytelling structure used in movies and books, but you can use a mini version for your daily stories. Step 1 is the call, where you have a goal, like wanting to buy a dress. Step 2 is the obstacle, where something stops you, like the shop being closed. Step 3 is the struggle where you try to solve it, like running to another shop across town. Step 4 is the victory where you succeed, like finding an even better dress. Step 5 is the change where you learn something, like learning that sometimes bad luck leads to good luck. This obstacle and struggle part is crucial. If you say I went to the shop and bought a dress, there is no struggle. It is boring. But if the shop is closed and it is raining and you have to run, that is a story. So when you tell a story about your day, look for the struggle, even a small one. I wanted coffee, but the machine was broken. I wanted to sleep, but the neighbors were loud. Focus on the struggle. It is where the human connection happens because we all struggle. Let's practice telling a story about a misunderstanding. These are often the funniest stories for language learners. Have you ever said the wrong word? I have a friend who wanted to say he was embarrassed in Spanish, but he said he was embarazada, which means pregnant. It was a very funny moment. Let's construct a story about a misunderstanding in English. Imagine you are at a restaurant. You want a napkin, the paper for your mouth, but you forget the word. You ask for a diaper, the underwear for a baby. The story would go like this. Last year, I was at a fancy dinner in London. I spilled some sauce on my chin. I called the waiter over. I wanted to be polite. I said, "Excuse me, sir, could I please have a diaper?" The waiter looked very confused. He said, "I am sorry, sir. This is a restaurant, not a nursery." My face went red. I realized my mistake, and we both laughed. I will never forget the word napkin again. This story works because of the vulnerability. You are admitting a mistake. Vulnerability creates trust. When you tell a story about being silly or making a mistake, the listener likes you more. They relax. So do not try to be the hero who is always perfect. Be the hero who makes mistakes and learns. We also need to talk about quoting thoughts. In a story, you can tell us what you were thinking, not just what you were doing. For example, I was walking down the street. I thought to myself, did I leave the stove on? Or I looked at the menu and thought, wow, this is expensive. Using I thought or I was thinking gives us a window into your mind. It adds a layer of depth. Practice this. Look at an object in your room. What are you thinking? I am looking at my plant. I am thinking, I need to water it soon. Turn that into a story. Yesterday, I looked at my poor plant. It was brown and dry. I thought to myself, oh no, I am a terrible plant mom. So I immediately gave it a big glass of water. Simple action plus internal thought equals an engaging story. Let's talk about volume and speed dynamics. A good storyteller changes their volume. When you are talking about something secret or scary, get a little quieter, lean in, and then, I heard a noise. When you are talking about something exciting or loud, get a little louder, and suddenly the door burst open. This is acting. You are an actor. Your stage is the conversation. If you speak in a monotone with one volume and one speed, you will put people to sleep. Practice whispering a sentence like, "It was a secret." Practice shouting a sentence gently like, "It was amazing." Vary your voice. It keeps the listener's brain awake. Now let's combine everything we have learned so far into a practice prompt. I want you to tell a story about a time you tried something new. It could be a new food, a new sport, a new hobby. Here is your checklist. Start with time and place. Use linking words. Add an adjective. Add a feeling. Add a thought. Add dialogue. End with a reflection. Let's write an example together. Last month, I decided to try yoga for the first time. I went to a studio near my house. It was a beautiful, calm room with soft music. I was feeling very nervous because everyone else looked so flexible. First, we did some breathing exercises. That was easy. Then we started the poses. The teacher said, "Now stand on one leg." I thought to myself, this is going to be a disaster. I tried to lift my leg, but I lost my balance. I fell over and bumped into the woman next to me. I was so embarrassed, but she smiled and said, "Don't worry, it happens to everyone." After that, I relaxed. I didn't become a yoga master that day, but I had fun. I learned that it is okay to fall down as long as you get back up. Read that story out loud. Feel the flow. It has all the elements. It is simple, but it is a complete narrative. It is better than saying, "I did yoga. It was hard. I fell. It was okay." The details make the difference. The soft music, the stand on one leg, the specific quote, "Don't worry." These details anchor the story in reality. Let's address a common issue, which is running out of breath. Sometimes students try to say a very long sentence without breathing. They get to the end and they sound like they just ran a marathon. You need to punctuate your speech with breath. English sentences are broken into thought groups. Last month, I decided to try yoga for the first time. The slashes are where you can pause slightly. You do not need to take a big gasp of air, but a micro pause. This helps your listener process the information. If you say, "Last month, decided to try yoga for my first time all at once," it is overwhelming. Group your words. Subject plus verb, pause. Prepositional phrase. I went to the store. She was walking down the street. Respect the pauses. They give you rhythm. Now let's talk about hypothetical stories. Sometimes we tell stories about things that did not happen or things we wish would happen. We use if and would. If I won the lottery, I would buy a big house. If I had known you were coming, I would have baked a cake. This is the conditional tense. It is great for storytelling. Imagine a story about a missed opportunity. Yesterday, I missed the bus. If I had caught that bus, I would have arrived on time. I would have met the boss. I might have gotten the promotion. But because I missed the bus, I was late. It is funny how 1 minute can change your whole day. This is a sliding doors moment. Exploring the what if is a fascinating way to expand your speaking skills. It forces you to think abstractly. Another great topic for stories is coincidence. We love coincidences. You will never guess who I saw today. It was such a coincidence. It was a small world. Story time. I was on vacation in Paris. I was thousands of miles from home. I was walking near the Louvre Museum. Suddenly, I heard someone call my name. Jessica. I turned around. It was my neighbor from my hometown. I couldn't believe it. We traveled across the ocean just to bump into each other on the street. It really is a small world. Stories like this are gold. They are memorable. They are easy to tell because the surprise is the main point. Let's focus on the word get. Get is one of the most common storytelling verbs in English. It replaces many formal words. Instead of arrived, we say got to. I gotta work. Instead of became, we say got. I got tired. It got dark. Instead of received, we say got. I got a present. Instead of bought, we say got. I got some milk. In storytelling, using get makes you sound more casual and natural. Formal sounds like, when I arrived at the station, I became hungry, so I purchased a sandwich. Storytelling sounds like, when I got to the station, I got hungry, so I got a sandwich. See how much faster that is? It is less stiff. Do not be afraid of get. It is not bad English. It is conversational English. However, be careful not to overuse it if you are writing a formal essay. But for speaking, use it. I got lost. I got confused. I got excited. I got a cold. I got a text message. Let's practice replacing formal verbs with get in a story context. Original is I entered the car and became anxious. Better is I got in the car and got anxious. Original is I obtained a letter. Better is I got a letter. Practice this transformation. It will make your speech flow more like a river and less like a textbook. Now, I want to give you a listening challenge for your next movie or TV show. I want you to listen for the story within the story. In almost every movie, characters sit down and tell a story about their past. Watch how they do it. Watch their eyes. Do they look away? People often look up or away when remembering. Watch their hands. Do they gesture? Listen to their pitch. Does it go up and down? Pick one character and try to imitate their storytelling style for just one sentence. If they say, I was terrified, you say, I was terrified, exactly like them. This mimicry is powerful. It bypasses your analytical brain and goes straight to your instinct. We are building a massive structure here. You have the grammar, the vocabulary, the pronunciation, and the body language. But the most important ingredient is confidence. Confidence does not mean knowing everything. Confidence means being okay with not knowing everything. It means trusting that you can handle the situation. If you forget a word, you have the tool of description. If you make a mistake, you have the tool of self-correction. If you get interrupted, you have the recovery phrases. You have a safety net, so you can walk on the tightrope. You can take risks. Tell that story about the time you burned the dinner. Tell that story about your funny cat. Tell it imperfectly. Just tell it. Let's do a quick exercise on emphasis. Sometimes we want to highlight one specific fact. We can use the auxiliary verb do or did for this. I didn't like the food, but I did like the wine. I don't play soccer, but I do play tennis. Adding that extra stress on did or do adds contrast. It clarifies your meaning. Story time. My friends thought I was afraid of the roller coaster, but I wasn't. I did want to go on it. I was just waiting for the line to go down. This is a subtle tool, but it shows you have control over the nuance of your meaning. As we move forward, I want you to think about the moral of your stories. Not every story needs a big life lesson, but it is nice to have a takeaway. I learned that patience is key. I realized that family is the most important thing. It taught me to be more careful. Adding this little philosophical sentence at the end gives your story weight. It makes the listener think. It elevates your small anecdote into a shared wisdom. I missed the train, but I met a new friend on the platform. I learned that everything happens for a reason. Beautiful, right? And simple. Building on that idea of finding the lesson in the story, let's look at how we paint the background of our stories using a specific grammar tool. It is called the past continuous tense. I know grammar terms can be scary, but the concept is very simple. Imagine a movie scene. Before the main actor walks in and speaks, we see the background. Maybe the sun is shining, the birds are flying, the cars are driving. This background action is the past continuous. We use was or were plus the ing verb. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. I was walking to the park. This sets the mood. It tells us what was happening around the main event. Then the main event happens. This is the simple past. Suddenly, a dog ran out. So the formula is long action, background, plus short action, interruption. I was sleeping when the phone rang. I was cooking dinner when I cut my finger. Using this combination is the difference between a flat story and a 3D story. Flat is, I cooked dinner, I cut my finger. 3D is, I was cooking a delicious dinner, chopping the vegetables, listening to jazz music, when suddenly, ouch, I cut my finger. Do you see the scene? You can hear the jazz. You can see the chopping. The ing words create a video in the listener's mind. Let's practice this background versus action technique. Think of a time you were interrupted. I was studying. What happened? When the electricity went out. I was taking a shower. What happened? When the doorbell rang, I was driving to work. What happened? When I saw an accident. This structure is the backbone of almost every anecdote. It creates suspense. I was walking down a dark alley. We know something is going to happen because you use the continuous tense. We are waiting for the interruption. We are on the edge of our seat. Now, let's upgrade your vocabulary regarding the word said. In school, we learn. He said, she said, they said. But in storytelling, said can be a little boring. It is a neutral word. It has no flavor. To advance your English, try using reporting verbs that show how the person spoke. If they were angry, use shouted or screamed or yelled. Get out, he shouted. If they were quiet or secretive, use whispered or mumbled. It is a secret, she whispered. If they were happy, use laughed or joked. That is so funny, he laughed. If they were asking a question, use asked or inquired. Where are we going, she asked. If they were explaining something, use explained or replied. I am late because of traffic, he explained. Using these words adds emotion without you having to describe it separately. Instead of saying he said stop and he was very loud, you just say he shouted stop. It is cleaner, it is faster, it is more powerful. Let's try a dialogue transformation. Basic is I want ice cream, the child said. No, the mother said. Please, the child said. Okay, the mother said. Advanced is I want ice cream, the child begged. No, the mother replied firmly. Please, the child whined. Okay, fine, the mother sighed. Look at those verbs like begged, replied, whined, and sighed. Sighed is when you let out air because you are tired. Ha ha. Okay, fine. That one word sighed tells us the whole relationship between the mother and the child. The mother is tired, the child is persistent. You did not have to explain it, the verb did the work for you. We should also talk about phrasal verbs. I know students often hate phrasal verbs because they are confusing, but native speakers love them. We use them constantly in stories. They make the story sound informal and authentic. Wake up instead of awaken, set off instead of depart, bump into instead of encounter, give up instead of quit, turn up instead of arrive. If you say I departed the house at 7 a.m., you sound like a train schedule. If you say I set off at 7 a.m., you sound like a storyteller. Let's weave some common phrasal verbs into a story about a bad morning. My alarm didn't go off, meaning ring. I woke up late. I threw on, meaning put on quickly, my clothes and ran out. I tried to get on the bus, but it was full. I finally turned up, meaning arrived, at work an hour late. My boss told me to calm down because I was panicking. Hear how natural that sounds? Go off, wake up, throw on, run out, get on, turn up, calm down. These are the engines of the story. Pick 3 phrasal verbs this week. Just 3. Maybe look for, find out, and show up. Try to use them in your 1-minute story. I was looking for my keys. I found out they were in the fridge. I showed up to the party late. Simple. Effective. Another great storytelling trick is the rule of 3. The human brain likes things in 3s. It feels complete. It feels rhythmic. The morning was cold, dark, and rainy. I was tired, hungry, and grumpy. We looked here, there, and everywhere. Blood, sweat, and tears. Cool, calm, and collected. When you are describing something, try to find 3 adjectives instead of 1 or 2. The cake was sweet is okay. The cake was sweet and soft is better. The cake was sweet, soft, and creamy is perfect. This rhythm draws the listener in. It creates a musical beat. He opened the door, looked around, and smiled. That is 3 actions. I packed my bag, grabbed my passport, and called a taxi. That is 3 actions. Try to notice this rule of 3 in speeches, in songs, and in advertisements. It is everywhere because it works. Now let's talk about hyperbole. Hyperbole means exaggeration. In English storytelling, we exaggerate a lot. We do not mean it literally, but we use it to show strong emotion. I have told you 1,000,000 times means I told you many times. I am starving means I am very hungry. This bag weighs a ton means it is heavy. I was waiting for ages means I waited a long time. He is older than dirt means he is very old. If you use these phrases, you sound very fluent. A beginner says I am very hungry. A fluent speaker says I could eat a horse. This is a famous idiom for hunger. Don't be afraid to exaggerate in your stories. It adds drama. The line at the bank was endless. It cost an arm and a leg. I nearly died of embarrassment. Of course, you didn't die, but we understand exactly how you felt. Let's move to a very practical application of storytelling, which is the job interview. Many people don't realize that a job interview is just a series of stories. When an interviewer says, "Tell me about a time you solved a problem," they are asking for a story. They want the beginning, middle, and end. We often use the STAR method for this, which is just a fancy way of structuring a story. S is for situation, the beginning. I was working as a manager at a cafe. T is for task, the goal. We had a very busy Sunday and the coffee machine broke. A is for action, the struggle and solution. I quickly called the mechanic, and while we waited, I made tea samples for the customers to keep them happy. R is for result, the ending or moral. The customers loved the tea, nobody complained, and we actually sold more tea that day than ever before. See? It is a story. It has a conflict with the broken machine and a resolution with the tea samples. If you practice telling your professional achievements as stories, you will be much more impressive in interviews. Do not just list facts. I am a problem solver. No. Tell the story of how you solved the problem. Let me tell you about a time I saved a client relationship. This makes you memorable. Facts are forgotten, stories are remembered. Let's talk about show, don't tell. This is a golden rule for writers, but it applies to speakers too. Instead of telling us an adjective, describe the physical reality that proves the adjective. Don't tell me he was nervous. Show me. His hands were shaking. He was sweating. He couldn't make eye contact. Don't tell me it was cold. Show me. I could see my breath in the air. I wrapped my coat tight around me. Don't tell me the room was dirty. Show me. There was dust on the shelves and old pizza boxes on the floor. When you show, you invite the listener to be a detective. They put the clues together and think, he is nervous. This engages their brain. Let's practice. How would you show that someone is tired? Maybe say, her eyes were closing. She was yawning every 2 minutes. She had dark circles under her eyes. How would you show that someone is happy? Maybe say she couldn't stop smiling. She was humming a song. She was skipping down the street. Try this game with a friend. Give them an emotion, like angry, and ask them to describe a person without saying the word angry. It is a fun game, and it builds your descriptive power immensely. Now let's consider the audience. To tell a good story, you need to know who you are talking to. If you are talking to your best friend, your story can be fast, full of slang, and personal. Dude, you won't believe it. I totally messed up. If you are talking to your boss, your story should be clearer, slower, and more formal. I had a slight issue with the project, but I resolved it. If you are talking to a child, your story should be simple, dramatic, and full of big voices. And then, the big bad wolf came. Adjusting your register, the level of formality, is a key part of fluency. You do not wear a swimsuit to a wedding. You do not use dude with your grandmother. When you practice your 1-minute story, try telling it twice. Once for a friend informally, like I got so drunk last night. And once for a boss formally, like I had a few too many drinks at the dinner. Same story, different clothes. Let's discuss intonation again, specifically for questions and statements in stories. When we tell a story, we often ask rhetorical questions. These are questions we don't expect an answer to. We use them to check in with the listener. You know what I mean? Can you believe it? Isn't that crazy? The intonation usually goes uppy at the end. Crazy? Mean? But when we state a fact, the intonation goes down. It was a dark night. Down. If you go up at the end of a statement, you sound unsure. It was a dark night? Up. This sounds like you are asking the listener if it was dark. It sounds weak. This is called uptalk, and it can make you sound unconfident. So, rule of thumb is, question means pitch goes up. Statement means pitch goes down. I went to the store. Down. Strong. I went to the store. Up. Weak. Practice saying your sentences with a firm downward note at the end. It signals, I know what I'm talking about. This is my story. Another technique is foreshadowing. This means giving a little hint about the ending at the beginning. I didn't know it then, but that day was going to change my life. Little did I know, I had made a huge mistake. I thought it was going to be a normal Tuesday. I was wrong. These openers are like movie trailers. They tell the listener, stay tuned, something big is coming. I walked into the office unaware that I was about to get fired. Boom. Now I have to listen. I need to know why you got fired. Try adding a foreshadowing sentence to your next story. It hooks the listener immediately. Let's talk about handling names. If you are telling a story to someone who doesn't know your friends, don't use too many names. It gets confusing. So John told Mary, and Mary told Steve, and Steve told Alice. The listener thinks, wait, who is Steve? Is he the brother? Instead, use roles or descriptions. So my friend John told his sister, and she told her husband, and he told his boss. This is easier to follow. We understand the relationships, my colleague, my neighbor, my cousin. Only use names if the name is important or if the listener knows the person. Otherwise, keep the cast of characters simple. This guy at the shop, the woman on the bus. That is enough. We also need to talk about cultural context. Humor and stories are often cultural. In some cultures, it is normal to talk about money. I bought this cheap, only $5. In other cultures, talking about money is rude. In some cultures, you talk about your health problems in detail. In others, you keep it private. When speaking English, generally, it is safe to be humble and slightly self-deprecating, meaning making fun of yourself. English speakers, especially British, love stories where things go wrong and it is a bit awkward. We don't like stories that are just bragging. I am so rich and smart and everyone loves me is boring and arrogant. I tried to look cool, but I tripped and fell in a puddle. Is funny and likable. So, if you want to connect, share your small failures. Share your human moments. Let's practice a transformation story. This describes how you changed from point A to point B. I used to be afraid of dogs. When I was a child, a big dog barked at me and I ran away. For years, I would cross the street if I saw a dog. But then my best friend got a puppy. It was so small and cute. I started to play with it. Slowly, I got used to it. Now, I love dogs, and I even have one of my own. This follows a beautiful arc. Fear to exposure to change to love. Think of something you have changed your mind about. Food, a sport, a city. I used to hate coffee. It was too bitter. But then I started working early mornings. I needed the energy. I started adding milk and sugar. Now I can't start my day without it. Let's delve into sensory overload. Sometimes, to show chaos, we list many sensory details quickly. The market was crazy. People were shouting, horns were honking. The smell of spices was everywhere. It was hot, sticky, and colorful. This rapid-fire listing mimics the feeling of chaos. It makes the listener feel overwhelmed, just like you were. Contrast this with a calm description using long vowels and slow rhythm. The lake was silent. The water was smooth and blue. The only sound was a gentle breeze. Your voice should match the scene, fast and loud for chaos, slow and soft for peace. Let's talk about the word actually. This is a very common word in storytelling. We use it to correct a misconception or to introduce a surprise fact. You might think I was angry, but actually, I was just tired. It looks like a diamond, but actually, it is glass. I thought the test would be hard. Actually, it was easy. Actually is a bridge between what people think and what is true. Use it to clarify your feelings. Everyone thought I was brave. Actually, I was terrified. What about basically? Basically is a summarizing word. We use it when we want to give the main point without the details. I lost my ticket, I missed the train, I had to walk. Basically, I had a terrible day. He talked for an hour, but basically he said no. Basically is great for wrapping up a long, complicated section. It tells the listener, here is the simple version. Let's combine actually and basically. I told him I was busy. Actually, I was just watching TV. Basically, I didn't want to go out. This is very natural speech. It shows the nuance of the lie with actually and the core truth with basically. Now, I want to give you a listening strategy for finding stories. Ask questions. The best storytellers are also the best listeners. To get someone else to tell a story, ask open-ended questions. Instead of, "Did you have a good weekend?" which is yes or no, ask, "What was the best part of your weekend?" Instead of, "Do you like your job?" ask, "How did you get started in your career?" When you ask how or what happened, you invite a story. And listening to other people's stories is the best way to learn the rhythm. You can steal their phrases. If they say, "It was a nightmare," you can remember that. Next time you have a bad day, you say, "It was a nightmare." Let's talk about the twist. A twist is a surprise ending. I was looking for my glasses everywhere. I looked in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the car. I was getting so frustrated. I asked my wife, "Have you seen my glasses?" She laughed and pointed at my face. I was wearing them the whole time. The twist makes the story funny. The tension builds with, "Where are they?" And then the release with, "They are on my face." Try to think of a time you were looking for something that was right in front of you, or a time you thought someone was a stranger but they were actually a friend. These little twists are delightful. We should also cover placeholders. Sometimes you want to mention a person or thing, but the name doesn't matter. We use words like, "What's his name?" or "thingy." I saw old "What's his name?" at the store today. This means I forgot his name. Pass me the thingy, the remote control. While you should try to be precise, these words are very common in spoken English. They show that you are comfortable with the language, enough to be vague. Whatchamacallit is another one. Where is the whatchamacallit for the TV? But don't overuse these. Use them only when the name truly escapes you. Let's discuss the power of repetition of structure. I went to the store, I bought the milk, I came home. He looked at me. He looked at the door. He looked at the clock. Repeating the subject plus verb structure creates a marching rhythm. It implies a routine or a sequence that happened quickly. She cleaned the house. She washed the clothes. She cooked the dinner. It emphasizes the amount of work. Compared to she cleaned, washed clothes, and cooked. The repetition makes it feel longer and more tiring. She did this, and she did that, and she did this. Use this when you want to complain about how much work you did. I wrote the report. I emailed the client. I fixed the printer. Now, let it talk about atmosphere. How to describe the vibe of a place. Use words like cozy, meaning warm, small, comfortable. Hectic, meaning busy, fast, chaotic. Spooky, meaning scary, dark, quiet. Lively, meaning full of energy and people. Dull, meaning boring, gray. The cafe was so cozy. It smelled like cinnamon and there were soft armchairs. The office was hectic. Phones were ringing and people were running. Setting the atmosphere helps the listener feel what you felt. I walked into the house. It was spooky. The lights were off and the floorboards creaked. Immediately, we are in a ghost story. Let's do a quick drill on time markers for long stories. Start with in the beginning or to start with. Middle is as time went on, or meanwhile, or a few days later. Turning point is eventually, or at long last. End is looking back or in retrospect. Looking back is a great phrase. It means thinking about the past with the knowledge you have now. Looking back, I realize I was too young to get married. Looking back, it was a funny situation, even though I cried at the time. This adds maturity to your story. It separates the you then from the you now. Finally, for this section, let's talk about leaving the conversation. You have told your story. The conversation is ending. How do you leave smoothly? You can use a future reason. Anyway, I better get going. I have to pick up the kids. Well, it was great catching up. I need to get back to work. I should probably head off. It is getting late. These phrases signal the story is over. The conversation is over. Goodbye, but in a polite way. You don't just walk away. Anyway, look at the time. I have to run. Practice these exit lines. They save you from awkward silences at the end of a chat. Now, let's move to the mindset that holds it all together. The ultimate goal of fluency is to stop translating in your head. When you translate from your native language to English, there is a delay. It is like a computer loading. This delay breaks your flow. To become a true storyteller, you must start thinking in English. I know this sounds impossible, but it is not. You start small. Look around your room right now. Name 5 objects in English: chair, table, lamp, window, phone. Do not think of the word in your language first. Go straight to the English word. Now, try to think in simple sentences. The lamp is bright. The chair is comfortable. This is the seed of thinking in English. When you are walking down the street, narrate your walk. I am walking. It is cold. I see a bus. Doing this internal monologue trains your brain to access English directly. When you can access the words directly, your stories will flow like water because you are removing the middleman of translation. Let's talk about a very advanced storytelling technique called the flashback. Sometimes, in the middle of a story, you need to remember something from the past to explain the present. You can use phrases like, "it reminded me of," or "it was just like when." For example, you're telling a story about a bad restaurant experience. You can say, "The waiter was so rude. It reminded me of a time I went to a cafe in Paris where the waiter actually threw the menu at me." This little flashback adds depth. It shows that you have a rich history. It compares the current situation to a past situation. It makes the story bigger. But be careful not to get lost in the flashback. You must come back to the main story. Use a phrase like, "Anyway, back to the restaurant." This signals the return. It keeps the listener oriented. We also need to discuss the art of the summary. Sometimes you will realize you have been talking for too long. You see the listener looking at their watch or looking away. This is a sign to wrap it up. You need a phrase to condense the ending. To make a long story short is the classic phrase for this. To make a long story short, we missed the plane and had to stay another night. Another good one is in a nutshell. In a nutshell, it was a disaster. These idioms are very native. They show that you respect the listener's time. They show that you have social intelligence. A good storyteller knows when to speak and when to stop. Let's touch on the concept of vulnerability again, but in a different way. Sometimes you might get emotional when telling a story. Maybe it is a sad story. Maybe you are angry. Do not be afraid of this emotion. If your voice shakes a little, it is okay. If you laugh at your own joke, it is okay. In fact, laughing at your own story is infectious. If you are laughing, the listener will probably start laughing too. It creates a bond. English is not just a code to be cracked. It is a vehicle for your soul. If you speak like a robot, people will treat you like a robot. If you speak like a human, with all the messiness and emotion, people will connect with you. So let your personality shine through the grammar. I want to give you a specific daily habit to build your storytelling muscle. It is called the 3-2-1 method. Every day, spend 3 minutes listening to a story. It could be a podcast, a YouTube video, or a news report. Just 3 minutes. Then spend 2 minutes reading a story out loud. It could be a page from a book or an article. Read it with emotion. Finally, spend 1 minute speaking. Record yourself telling a story about your day. 3 minutes listening, 2 minutes reading, 1 minute speaking. That is only 6 minutes a day. Everyone has 6 minutes. If you do this consistently, you will see a massive improvement in your flow within a month. It is not about studying for 5 hours on Sunday. It is about doing 6 minutes every single day. Consistency is the key to fluency. Let's address the fear of being judged. Many of you are afraid that if you make a mistake, people will think you are stupid. Let me tell you a secret. Most people are not judging your grammar, they are listening to your message. If you tell an interesting story about a travel adventure, they are thinking about the travel, not about your prepositions. They are imagining the place. They are wondering what happened next. They are not grading you. The only person grading you is you. You are your own harshest critic. So be kind to yourself. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step towards mastery. If you say he go instead of he went, the world will not end. The sun will still rise tomorrow. Just correct it if you can and keep moving. Another great way to practice is to retell a story you heard. If you watch a funny video, tell your friend about it in English. You already know the plot, you know the ending. You just have to find the words. This is easier than creating a story from scratch because the structure is already there. You can focus on the vocabulary and the delivery. I saw this hilarious video today. There was a cat, and it tried to jump on the table, but it slipped. Retelling stories is a fantastic bridge to telling your own stories. It builds your confidence because you know the story is good. Let's talk about the phrase, you know. Native speakers use this a lot. It is a way to check for agreement. It was really cold, you know. It helps to keep the connection. But do not use it every 5 seconds. If you say it too much, it becomes distracting. Use it at the end of a thought to invite the listener to nod. It is like a little handshake. We are in this together, right? You know? I also want to suggest using metaphors. A metaphor is when you say something is something else. My boss is a dragon. He is not literally a dragon, but it tells us he is scary and breathes fire. The exam was a breeze. It means it was easy and fresh. Life is a roller coaster. It has ups and downs. Metaphors are the jewelry of language. They make your speech sparkle. You do not need to invent complex ones. Learn the common ones. Time is money. He has a heart of gold. These little phrases pack a lot of meaning into a few words. They make you sound culturally fluent. Let's think about the volume of your voice. Some learners speak very quietly because they are shy. They mumble. This kills the story. If I have to strain to hear you, I cannot enjoy the story. You must project your voice. Speak from your diaphragm, not your throat. Imagine your voice is a ball and you want to throw it to the back of the room. When you speak loudly, you actually make fewer mistakes because you are more committed to the words. Your brain works better when you are physically confident. So stand up straight. Open your mouth. Let the sound out. Do not apologize for your voice. Now let's talk about the ending of your journey with this specific story. You have practiced it. You have recorded it. You have told it to your cat. Now tell it to a human. Find a language partner. Find a tutor. Or just tell a friend who speaks English. Watch their face. Do they smile? Do they look confused? This feedback is gold. If they look confused, stop and ask, did that make sense? This is a brave question. Did that make sense? It shows you care about communication. If they say no, try to explain it in a different way. This negotiation of meaning is where real learning happens. I want to share a final tip about paraphrasing. If you get stuck on a word or if the listener doesn't understand, say it in a different way. This is a superpower. I felt what is the word? Isolated. Listener looks confused. I felt like I was all alone and nobody could help me. That is paraphrasing. You explain the concept. You do not need the exact fancy word if you can explain the meaning. Never let a missing word stop your story. Go around the wall, dig under it, climb over it. Just keep moving. We are going to go even deeper now. I want to talk about a very specific type of story that you will often tell in English, which is the excuse story. This is when you are late, or you forgot something, or you cannot go to a party. You need to tell a story to explain why, but you want to be polite. The key here is the softener. You do not just say, I can't come. That is too direct. You start with a softener like, I would love to come, or I am so sorry, but. Then you tell the story of the obstacle. I was planning to leave the house at 6, but my car wouldn't start. I tried to call a mechanic, but nobody was available. Then you offer a future solution. Maybe we can meet next week instead. This structure of softener, obstacle story, future solution is essential for maintaining good relationships. It shows you care. I'm so sorry I missed your call. I was in a meeting that went on forever. It was actually quite stressful. Call me back when you can. Notice the actually quite stressful. This little detail makes the excuse real. It makes the listener feel sympathy for you instead of anger. Let's explore the art of describing people in your stories. Characters make stories interesting. If you just say, my friend, it is a blank shape. We need to fill that shape. We need to give my friend a personality. You can do this with just 1 or 2 adjectives or a specific habit. My friend Tom, who is always drinking coffee. My neighbor, who is very loud. My boss, the one with the crazy glasses. These little tags help the listener visualize the person. Let's try a story with character tags. I went to lunch with my cousin Sarah. You know Sarah, she is the one who is afraid of everything. Well, we went to a sushi restaurant. She looked at the raw fish and her eyes went wide. She whispered, "Is it dead?" I laughed so hard. It was classic Sarah. See, how is it? Dead? Matches the description of her being afraid. The character description sets up the joke. If you didn't tell me she was afraid, the story wouldn't be as funny. We also need to talk about pacing. Pacing is how fast or slow you move through the story. When you are describing the setting, you can go slow. The sun was setting. The sky was purple and orange. It was quiet. But when the action happens, you speed up. Short sentences. Suddenly, I heard a noise. I turned around. A bike was coming right at me. I jumped. Speed up your voice. Remove the pauses. This mimics the adrenaline of the moment. Then, when the danger is over, slow down again. I took a deep breath. The biker apologized. I walked home slowly. Manipulating time like this is what filmmakers do. You are the director of your own speech. Practice reading a paragraph where you intentionally speed up in the middle and slow down at the end. It changes the energy completely. Let's discuss sound words or onomatopoeia. These are words that sound like what they describe. crash, bang, sizzle, pop, buzz. The bees were buzzing. The sausages were sizzling in the pan. The balloon went pop. The door shut with a bang. Using these words adds a literal soundtrack to your story. Instead of saying, there was a noise, say, there was a loud crash. It is much more descriptive. I was trying to sleep, but the tap was going drip, drip, drip. The listener can hear that sound. It is annoying, right? You communicated the feeling of annoyance just by using the sound word. Now, I want to address the tangent. A tangent is when you go off topic. I went to the store. Oh, I love that store. They have great candy. Anyway, I went to the store. Sometimes tangents are good. They show personality. But too many tangents make the story hard to follow. If you catch yourself going on a tangent, catch yourself, stop, and say, but that is a story for another time. This is a great phrase. I saw my ex-boyfriend. We broke up 3 years ago. It was a mess, but that is a story for another time. Anyway, I saw him at the bank. This phrase, but that is a story for another time, tells the listener, I know I am distracted. I am coming back now. It is very polished. Let's talk about hypothetical past. This is when we talk about things we didn't do. I should have. I could have. I would have. These are the modals of regret. They are very powerful for storytelling. I should have studied harder. I could have traveled more. I would have called you, but I lost my phone. Stories about regret are very human. I went to the party, but I should have stayed home. It was boring, and I got a headache. If I had stayed home, I would have watched a movie and been happy. Practice this structure. I did X, but I should have done Y. I bought the blue shirt, but I should have bought the red one. I ate the spicy curry, but I should have ordered the mild one. This adds a layer of reflection to your narrative. Let's move to idioms for storytelling. There are certain idioms that are designed for stories, to cut a long story short. We mention this, but it is the king of idioms. Out of the blue, means suddenly. It happened out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it. In the nick of time, meaning just before it was too late. I arrived at the station in the nick of time. The train was just leaving. To make matters worse, meaning adding a second problem. I missed the bus, and to make matters worse, it started to rain. All of a sudden, it cost an arm and a leg, meaning expensive. I was over the moon, meaning happy. Try to pick one of these idioms and use it in your next story. Do not use all of them. Just one well-placed idiom makes you sound like a native speaker. I was walking home and, out of the blue, it started to snow. Simple. Elegant. Now let's talk about common ground. When you tell a story, you want the listener to feel like they are like you. You can do this by appealing to shared experiences using phrases like, you know how traffic is in this city, or you know how expensive coffee is these days, or you know how hard it is to wake up on Monday. Starting with these phrases builds a bridge. I was driving to work. You know how the traffic is on Main Street, and I got stuck for an hour. The listener nods. They know Main Street. They know the traffic. Now they are on your side. Even if they don't know the specific street, they know the feeling of traffic. I went to the dentist. You know how scary dentists are. And I was shaking. Most people hate the dentist, so they connect with you immediately. Let's focus on the word just. Just is a very versatile word in stories. It can mean recently, like I just arrived. It can mean only, like I just have one question. It can mean simply, like it was just amazing. In stories, we often use it to emphasize a feeling. I was just so tired. It was just perfect. I just couldn't believe it. Just acts like a highlighter pen. It draws attention to the word next to it. He was just standing there, implies he was doing nothing else. Maybe it was strange. I just wanted to help implies good intentions. Using just correctly softens your speech and adds emotion. I am just calling to say hello. I just wanted to let you know. What about negative questions for agreement? Isn't it beautiful? Wasn't it strange? Didn't you love it? When you tell a story, use these to pull the listener in. I went to that new park. Isn't it lovely? You expect the answer? Yes. I saw that movie. Wasn't it sad? You expect the answer yes. This is a way of checking that your listener is following your emotional journey. If you say, wasn't it sad? And they say, no, I thought it was funny, then you have an interesting conversation. Let's talk about self-correction again, but specifically regarding names and details. Sometimes you forget a detail. I went to see... Oh, what was the movie called? The one with the boat? Titanic. Yes, I went to see Titanic. Do not hide this process. This thinking out loud is natural. I was talking to... Who was it? Was it Dave? No, it was Mike. I was talking to Mike. This shows that you are trying to be accurate. It is better than stopping and saying nothing. The listener will wait for you if you keep talking while you think. It was about... Let me think. 3 years ago. It was a... What do you call it? A spatula. Let's discuss the anticlimax. Sometimes a story builds up to nothing, and that can be funny too. I heard a strange noise in the basement. I grabbed a flashlight. I walked down the stairs slowly. My heart was pounding. I opened the door, and it was just the cat. The build-up was scary. The ending was boring. The gap between the fear and the reality is the joke. I thought I had won the lottery. I checked the numbers. I was screaming. I called my mom. Then I realized I was looking at last week's numbers. I won nothing. Sharing these moments makes you relatable. Let's practice grading your language. If you are telling a story to a beginner, keep it simple. I went to the beach. It was hot. I swam. If you are telling a story to an advanced speaker, decorate it. I headed down to the coast. It was absolutely scorching. I took a dip in the ocean. Headed down instead of went. Absolutely scorching instead of hot. Took a dip instead of swam. As you listen to this podcast, try to identify the advanced phrases. Took a dip is a great one. Grab a bite, meaning eat food, is another. I was hungry, so I grabbed a bite at the sandwich shop. Let's grab a coffee. These phrases are very common in casual storytelling. Now, let's look at reported thoughts. We talked about I thought, but you can also use I wondered. I wondered if he was lying. I wondered where she bought that dress. I was wondering if I should leave. Wondering is a soft, thoughtful action. I was sitting in the cafe, wondering what to do with my life. I looked at the menu, wondering if I could afford the steak. It adds a philosophical or hesitant tone to your story. Let's talk about the hook. The hook is the very first sentence. We mentioned this, but let's practice specific hooks. Hook 1 is the question. Have you ever had a really bad day? Hook 2 is the statement of fact. I am the clumsiest person in the world. Hook 3 is the mystery. I will never forget the night of the storm. Hook 4 is the sound. Bang. That was the sound of my car hitting the wall. Hook 5 is the time. It was 3 a.m. and I was wide awake. Try to start your next story with a hook. Do not just ease into it. Jump into it. You won't believe who I saw. I have a secret to tell you. These demand attention. Let's discuss giving advice through stories. Sometimes we tell a story to teach someone a lesson. You should be careful with your phone. Once I left my phone on a table in a cafe. I turned around for 1 second and it was gone. So never leave it unattended. The story about losing the phone supports the advice to be careful. If I were you, I wouldn't go there. I went there last year and it was terrible. Using your personal experience to back up your opinion is very persuasive. Don't buy that car. My uncle bought one and it broke down every week. This is much stronger than just saying, that is a bad car. Let's talk about regional accents and mimicry. You don't need to be an actor, but sometimes changing your voice slightly for a character helps. If you are quoting your boss, maybe make your voice a little deeper. If you are quoting a child, make it higher. If you are quoting someone who speaks fast, speak fast. My mom called and she was like, "Where are you? Why are you late and so varied?" And I was like, "Mom, calm down." The speed shows the mother's panic. You don't need to explain she was panicked. The speed does it for you. Let's look at the word like. Like is used as a filler, but also to mean said or thought in very casual young English. He was like, "No way." And I was like, "Yes way." I was like so tired. It was like the best day ever. Be careful. If you use this in a job interview, it sounds unprofessional. But if you use it with friends, it sounds very natural and current. I was like, "What is happening?" This is very common. Knowing when to use like and when to avoid it is a sign of high fluency. In a formal story, say, "I thought to myself, what is happening?" In a casual story, say, "I was like, what is happening?" Choose the right tool for the job. Let's talk about lists. We bought apples, oranges, and bananas. Notice the intonation. Apples goes up, oranges goes up, and bananas goes down. The voice goes up on the items in the list and down on the final item. This signals the list is finished. I visited France, Spain, and Italy. If you go up on the last one, the listener thinks there is more. I visited France, Spain, and Italy. Listener waits. And? That's it. Oh, you sounded like you weren't finished. Practice this list intonation. Up, up, down. It makes your speaking very clear. Let's talk about vague language. Sometimes you don't want to be specific. We use phrases like and stuff like that and things like that or something. We went to the park, played some games, ate some food and stuff like that. This means etc. It means you can imagine the rest. Do you want tea or coffee or something? He was wearing a suit or something. This is casual and useful when the details don't matter. Now let's combine vague language with placeholders. I need the whatchamacallit for the screw and stuff like that. This is a very fluent, messy sentence. It sounds exactly like a native speaker trying to fix a shelf. Don't be afraid to be messy. Real speech is messy. It is not a textbook. Let's talk about echo questions. This is when you repeat the question to think or to show surprise. Friend says, "Where did you buy your shoes?" You say, "Where did I buy my shoes?" Let me think. I think it was Amazon. Repeating the question gives you 2 or 3 seconds to search your brain. It is a brilliant stall tactic. Friend says, "How much did it cost?" You say, "How much did it cost?" It cost $50. Friend says, "Did you see the ghost?" You say, "Did I see the ghost?" "No, I didn't." It adds a conversational rhythm. Let's focus on the word actually again, but as a softener for no. If someone asks, "Do you like chicken?" No is too harsh. Actually, I am a vegetarian is polite. Did you enjoy the movie? Actually, I found it a bit boring is polite. Actually softens the blow of a negative opinion. It prepares the listener for a disagreement. I thought Paris was dirty. Actually, I found it quite clean. Use actually to disagree politely in your stories. Let's talk about the moral again. The moral of the story is, you can use this ironically as a joke. I ate the whole pizza and got a stomachache. The moral of the story is, I have no self-control. I tried to cut my own hair and it looks terrible. The moral of the story is, leave it to the professionals. Using a moral for a silly story is a very British or American sense of humor. We like to pretend our small mistakes are big life lessons. Finally, let's talk about confidence through preparation. If you know you are going to a party, prepare 3 stories: a work story, a travel story, and a news story. Rehearse them in the shower. Know the vocabulary. When you arrive at the party, you have ammunition. You don't have to panic and think, what do I say? You just pull out story number 1. Oh, speaking of travel, last year I went to... Preparation is the secret to spontaneity. It sounds spontaneous, but you practiced it. That is okay. That is how we learn. We have covered so many techniques: softeners, pacing, sound words, tangents, regrets, idioms, common ground, intonation, and vague language. You are filling your basket with ingredients. Now you need to cook. Cooking is speaking. You cannot learn to cook just by reading recipes. You have to get in the kitchen and burn the toast. You cannot learn English just by listening to me. You have to open your mouth and make mistakes. So please take these tools and use them. We are going to go even deeper now. I want to talk about a very specific type of story that you will often tell in English, which is the persuasion story. Sometimes you tell a story not just to entertain, but to get what you want. Maybe you want your friend to go to a specific restaurant. Maybe you want your boss to give you a day off. You do not just ask, you wrap the request in a story. This is the imagine if technique. Instead of saying, let's go to Italian food, you say, imagine if we were sitting on a terrace right now eating fresh pasta with that amazing garlic sauce. I remember the last time we went there, the tiramisu was so creamy it melted in your mouth. Wouldn't that be perfect for tonight? See what I did? I painted a picture. I used sensory details like garlic sauce, creamy and melted. I made you feel hungry before I asked the question. This is how advertisers work, and it is how good storytellers work. You create a desire through narrative. Imagine if we finished the project early. We could all go home at 3 p.m. and enjoy the sun. So let's work hard now. This is much more motivating than work hard so we can leave. Now let's tackle the apology story. Making a mistake is human. Explaining it in a second language is terrifying. The secret to a good apology story is taking responsibility without making too many excuses. We use the structure, the action, the consequence, and the fix. I am so sorry I missed the deadline. I was trying to make the report perfect, so I spent too much time on the details. I didn't realize the time. I know this causes a delay for the team. I have already finished it now, and I will make sure to manage my time better next week. Notice I didn't say, my computer broke or the traffic was bad. I said I spent too much time. Owning the mistake makes you look strong. And then I pivoted to the future with, I will make sure. Practice this. Think of a small mistake you made. Tell the story of why it happened, but keep yourself as the main actor. I forgot your birthday because I was so focused on my exams. It is not an excuse, but that is why my brain was scattered. Let me take you to dinner to make up for it. Let's discuss the epiphany. An epiphany is a sudden realization. It is that aha moment. In stories, we introduce this with phrases like, It dawned on me. It suddenly struck me. I came to the realization that, and then it hit me. These phrases signal a mental shift. I was arguing with my sister about the car. We were shouting. Suddenly it dawned on me that we weren't fighting about the car. We were fighting because we missed each other. We hadn't spoken in months. It dawned on me is a beautiful poetic phrase. It means the understanding rose like the sun. I was working at that job for 5 years. One day, I looked at my computer screen and it hit me, I hate this job. I quit the next day. These moments are the turning points of our lives. Sharing them creates a deep connection with the listener. We also need to talk about mixed feelings. Life is rarely just black and white. It is usually gray. To describe this, we use the structure. Part of me, but another part of me. Part of me wanted to go to the party because I wanted to see my friends, but another part of me just wanted to stay home and sleep. I felt torn. I felt torn is a great idiom. Imagine a piece of paper being pulled in 2 directions. That is how you feel. I was ambivalent is a formal word for mixed feelings. On the one hand, it is a great opportunity. On the other hand, I will miss my family. Using on the one hand, on the other hand, helps you organize these complex thoughts. It gives your story balance. I loved the movie. The acting was great. On the other hand, the ending was terrible. Let's talk about softening the blow. This is when you have to give bad news or say no in a story. You use positive words to wrap the negative message. This is often called the sandwich method. First, the bread, which is positive. I really enjoyed our meeting. Then the meat, which is negative. However, I don't think this project is right for me at this time. Then the bread again. But I would love to keep in touch for future work. If you just say, I don't want to do this project, it is rude. If you use the sandwich, it is professional. I tried the cake you made. The texture was amazing. It was a little too sweet for me, personally. But the presentation was beautiful. You told the truth regarding it being too sweet, but you protected their feelings. Now, let's look at sentence stress for contrast. In English, we change the meaning of a sentence by stressing different words. This is vital for storytelling clarity. Look at this sentence. I didn't say he stole the money. If I stress I didn't say he stole it, it implies maybe someone else said it. If I stress say, I didn't say he stole it, it implies maybe I wrote it or just thought it. If I stress he, I didn't say he stole it, it implies maybe someone else stole it. If I stress money, I didn't say he stole the money, it implies maybe he stole the jewelry. When you tell a story, use this volume change to correct misunderstandings. I didn't want to go to Paris, I wanted to go to Rome. It wasn't a dog, it was a wolf. Exaggerate this stress. It makes your point crystal clear. Let's talk about speculation. Sometimes in a story, we don't know the facts, so we guess. He must have been tired. She might have been lost. They could have misunderstood me. Must have implies you are almost sure. He walked right past me without saying hello. He must have been listening to music. This means you are 90% sure. He might have been angry, means you are 50% sure. He could have been blind is just a possibility. Using these modals allows you to interpret the world. I saw a car on the side of the road. It was smoking. The driver must have overheated the engine. This shows you are thinking critically. Let's introduce the rhetorical question for agreement. Who doesn't love pizza? It was a no-brainer, right? What was I supposed to do? He asked me to work on Sunday. What was I supposed to do? I said yes. This question, What was I supposed to do? Tells the listener, I had no choice. You would have done the same thing. It invites empathy. It was raining. My phone was dead, and I had no money. What was I supposed to do? I started walking. Let's talk about describing pain and discomfort. We often need to tell doctors or friends about our health. A dull ache is low pain that is constant. A sharp pain is sudden, high pain. A throbbing pain is like a heartbeat. Boom, boom. I had a splitting headache means a very bad headache. My stomach was churning means nausea. I felt lightheaded means dizzy. I twisted my ankle and felt a sharp pain shoot up my leg. Later, it was just a dull ache. These specific words are much more useful than just saying, it hurt. I was nervous. My stomach was in knots. I was so cold my teeth were chattering. Now let's talk about the unreliable narrator. This is a fun technique where you admit that your memory might be wrong. If I recall correctly, if memory serves me right, I might be wrong, but I think it all happened a long time ago, so the details are a bit fuzzy, but admitting that your memory is fuzzy makes you sound honest. It was, 1999, or maybe 2000. Anyway, around that time. This shows you are relaxed. You are not stressing about perfection. Let's discuss euphemisms. A euphemism is a polite word for something unpleasant. Instead of he died, we say he passed away. Instead of I was fired, we say I was let go. Instead of toilet, we say restroom or bathroom. My grandfather passed away last year. This is softer. The company had to let some people go. This sounds less harsh than firing them. I need to use the facilities. Using these words shows high cultural awareness. It shows you know how to be polite in sensitive situations. Let's focus on the word challenge. In English, we often use challenge instead of problem. Problem sounds negative and permanent. Challenge sounds active and solvable. We have a problem with the budget sounds bad. We are facing a challenge with the budget sounds better. I am having some challenges with my pronunciation. This mindset shift changes how people perceive you. You are not a victim of problems, you are a solver of challenges. The project was challenging, but we finished it. Let's talk about giving credit. When you tell a story about a success, it is polite to mention others who helped. I finished the marathon, but I couldn't have done it without my trainer. We won the game thanks to the team. I passed the exam, but I owe it all to my study partner. I owe it all to is a great phrase for gratitude. I got the job, but I owe it all to my sister who helped me with the resume. This makes you sound humble. Now, let's try a process story. This is explaining how to do something. Let me tell you how to make the perfect coffee. First, you need fresh beans. Don't use the old stuff. Grind them right before you brew. Then make sure the water isn't boiling. If it is boiling, it burns the coffee. Pour it slowly. Wait, smell the aroma. Then pour the rest. Notice the imperatives like grind, make sure, pour, wait, and smell. When giving instructions, we drop the you. We just use the verb. Turn left, go straight, stop at the lights. Practice this. Tell me how to brush your teeth. Put the paste on the brush, wet it. Brush in circles. Spit. Rinse. It is a simple sequence, but practicing it improves your command of verbs. Let's talk about interrupting yourself. Sometimes you have a new thought in the middle of a sentence. I was walking to the, oh wait, I forgot to tell you, I was wearing my pajamas. I saw him yesterday. No, actually, it was the day before yesterday. I was about to leave when, guess what? My phone rang. This self-interruption adds energy. It feels like a real conversation, not a read speech. I bought the tickets. Oh, and they were so expensive. And we went to the show. Let's look at the cliffhanger. This is when you stop the story at the most exciting moment to create suspense. I opened the letter. My hands were shaking. I read the first line. I couldn't believe my eyes. And do you know what it said? Pause. It said, I won. You force the listener to ask, what? What did it say? You control the reveal. I walked into the room and saw the biggest surprise of my life. Pause. It was a puppy. Let's discuss avoidance. Sometimes you don't want to answer a question. How much money do you make? That is a personal question. I prefer not to say. I make enough to get by. Let's not talk about that. Knowing how to set boundaries is part of fluency. You don't have to answer everything just because you are practicing English. Why are you single? I am just focusing on my career right now. That is a long story, implies you don't want to tell it. Let's talk about the collective we. When telling stories about your culture or country, we use we. In my country, we usually eat dinner late. We believe that family comes first. We are very passionate about football. This generalizes your experience to your whole culture. It is a nice way to share your background. We have a saying in my language, we tend to be very loud at weddings. Now, let's combine empathy and storytelling. I know exactly how you feel. I was in a similar situation last year. I can imagine how hard that was. That must have been devastating. That must have been amazing. Validating the other person's story is just as important as telling your own. You missed your flight? Oh no, that is a nightmare. I remember when I missed my flight to London. I felt so stupid. Did you have a good sleep at the airport? You connect their story to your story and then ask a question back to them. This is the tennis match of conversation. Hit the ball back. Let's talk about sarcasm. Sarcasm is saying the opposite of what you mean, usually to be funny. Oh, great. Another rainy day. Just what I wanted. This means I hate rain. He is a real genius. This means he is stupid. I love waiting in line for 2 hours. This means I hate it. Be careful with sarcasm. It relies on tone of voice. You have to sound bored or annoyed. If you say he is a genius with a happy voice, people will think you are serious. Oh, fantastic. My car broke down. Use a flat, low voice. Let's review signposting. These are words that tell the listener where we are going. Firstly, secondly, thirdly. Moving on to, on a related note, speaking of which. Speaking of which is a great transition. I love ice cream. Speaking of which, do you want to get some dessert? I hate traffic. Speaking of which, how was your drive here? It connects the current topic to the next topic. Let's talk about filler phrases for thinking. How should I put this? What I am trying to say is, let me rephrase that. The point I am trying to make is, these are very professional fillers. They show you are searching for the best words, not just any words. I don't like it. How should I put this? It is a bit too colorful for my taste. Let's address comparing past and present. I used to be shy, but now I am outgoing. I used to live in the city, but now I prefer the countryside. Back in the day, we didn't have smartphones. Back in the day means a long time ago. These days, everyone is on social media. Back in the day versus these days. A classic comparison. I remember when a coffee cost $1. These days, it is $5. Let's talk about giving up. Sometimes you can't finish a story or you forget the point. I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. It doesn't matter. I lost my train of thought is the perfect idiom for this. It means the train or the idea left the station without you. I was telling you about... Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Don't worry, it will come back to you. Finally, let's talk about the happy ending. People generally like stories to end on a positive or funny note. Even if the story was bad, like you lost your wallet, try to find a silver lining. I lost my wallet, which was terrible. But the police officer who helped me was so handsome, so it wasn't all bad. I broke my leg, but I got to watch all my favorite movies while I recovered. Ending with a butt shift leaves the listener feeling good. It was a disaster, but we laughed about it later. It was a hard lesson, but a valuable one. Welcome to this special masterclass section where we take everything we have learned and apply it to specific types of stories. You are not just telling a story anymore. You are telling a ghost story, or a love story, or a business success story. Each genre has its own music and its own vocabulary. Let's start with something fun, the scary story. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, telling a spooky story is a great way to practice atmosphere. In a scary story, your voice should be lower. You should use longer pauses. The vocabulary focuses on the unknown and the sensory. Words to use are creak, shiver, shadow, whisper, chill, and sudden. The structure is the normal setting, the strange detail, the realization, and the jump. It was a normal Tuesday night. I was home alone watching TV. The house was quiet. Suddenly I heard a creak from the upstairs hallway. I muted the TV. I held my breath. I heard it again. Creak. Creak. It sounded like footsteps. A chill went down my spine. I walked to the stairs and looked up. There was nothing there. But then I saw a shadow move across the wall. I shivered. I turned on all the lights and didn't sleep a wink. Notice the pacing, short sentences. I muted the TV. I held my breath. This creates tension. Didn't sleep a wink is a great idiom for not sleeping at all. Try telling a story about a time you were scared. It doesn't have to be ghosts. It could be a spider. Now let's switch to the romantic or emotional story. This requires a softer tone. We use words related to the heart and connection. Words to use are adorable, charming, butterflies, spark, connection, and awkward. I met him at a library. It was very awkward at first. We both reached for the same book. Our hands touched. I felt a spark. I looked at him, and he smiled. It was a charming smile. My heart was beating fast. I had butterflies in my stomach. We started talking for hours. It felt like I had known him forever. Butterflies in my stomach is the classic idiom for nervous excitement. A spark means instant chemistry. Notice how the sentences flow more gently here. We focus on feelings, not just actions. Let's look at the professional or business story. This is crucial for your career. In business, stories must be efficient. They focus on problem, solution, and result. The tone is confident and positive. Words to use are challenge, opportunity, streamline, efficiency, outcome, and lead. When I joined the team, we faced a major challenge with communication. Emails were getting lost. It was inefficient. So I saw an opportunity to introduce a new software tool. I took the lead on the project. It was hard work, but within a month we streamlined the process. The outcome was fantastic because productivity went up by 20%. See the difference? No creaks, no butterflies, just challenge, opportunity, result. Use strong verbs like streamlined, meaning made faster, and took the lead, meaning was the boss. This makes you sound like a leader. Let's talk about the complaint story. We all love to complain sometimes, but in English there is an art to complaining without sounding rude. We often use understatement. Instead of, the service was terrible, we say the service wasn't great. Instead of, the food was disgusting, we say, the food left a lot to be desired. It left a lot to be desired. Memorize this phrase. It is a very polite, very British way of saying it was bad. We went to that new hotel. The location was nice, but the room left a lot to be desired. It was a bit dusty and the AC didn't work. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest. To be honest softens the complaint. A bit disappointed sounds better than I was angry. Let's discuss the introduction of a new topic. When you want to change the story completely, use the phrase, on another note, or changing the subject. The weather has been terrible lately. On another note, have you seen the new Spider-Man movie? My job is going well. Changing the subject. How is your mother? This signals to the listener, close the old box, open a new box. It prevents confusion. We also need to talk about the rhetorical pivot. This is when you ask a question to yourself to move the story forward. So, did I give up? No, I kept trying. Was I scared? Absolutely. Did it work? Surprisingly, yes. Asking, did I give up, creates a mini cliffhanger. The listener thinks, did she? And then you answer no. It keeps them engaged. I missed the bus. So, what did I do? I decided to walk. Let's look at time skips. Sometimes you need to jump forward in time quickly. Fast forward to 2 years later. The next thing I knew, I fell asleep in the taxi. The next thing I knew, the driver was waking me up in front of my house. The next thing I knew implies it happened very fast or you were unconscious or distracted. I started learning English in 2020. Fast forward to 2025, and now I am a fluent speaker. Let's talk about giving opinions within a story. If you ask me, in my humble opinion, to my mind, the restaurant was expensive, and if you ask me, it wasn't worth it. In my humble opinion, that was the best movie of the year. To my mind, he made a mistake. These phrases frame your opinion as just one perspective, which is polite. Let's discuss agreement. When someone else tells a story, how do you agree with them enthusiastically? You can say that again, means I totally agree. Tell me about it, means I know exactly what you mean, because I have experienced it too. Friend says traffic is terrible today. You say, tell me about it. I was stuck for an hour. Friend says English grammar is hard. You say you can say that again. These are set phrases. Do not change them. Do not say you can say that 2 times. Say you can say that again. Now let's look at disbelief. How to react when a story is shocking. Get out of here means I don't believe you in a fun way. You've got to be kidding me. Are you serious? No way. Friend says I won the lottery. You say get out of here. Really? Friend says I met the president. You say you have got to be kidding me. Get out of here can be rude if you say it angrily, but if you smile and say it with surprise, it is very friendly. Let's talk about the weather. The weather is often a character in our stories. It sets the mood. It was pouring down means heavy rain. It was drizzling means light rain. It was scorching means hot. It was freezing means cold. A storm was brewing means a storm was coming. The sky opened up means sudden, heavy rain. We were having a picnic. Suddenly the sky opened up and we got soaked. It was pouring down. We ran to the car, shivering. Describing the weather adds texture. Let's discuss describing chaos. It was a madhouse. It was total pandemonium. It was like a zoo. All hell broke loose. This is a strong idiom meaning chaos happened. I opened the door and the dogs ran out. The baby started crying and the smoke alarm went off. It was a madhouse. All hell broke loose. These phrases paint a picture of noise and confusion. Let's talk about describing silence. You could hear a pin drop. It was dead silent. It was eerie, meaning scary silence. The teacher asked a question. Nobody knew the answer. You could hear a pin drop. This emphasizes how awkward the silence was. Let's move to cause and effect. Due to, as a result, consequently, because of this, I forgot my passport. As a result, I missed my flight. Due to the rain, the game was canceled. These are slightly more formal but very useful for clarity. I didn't study. Consequently, I failed. Let's talk about emphasizing truth. To tell you the truth, frankly, honestly. As a matter of fact, I said I liked the gift, but to tell you the truth, I hated it. Frankly, I don't care. This is very strong and rude. Use with caution. As a matter of fact, I did finish the work. Used when correcting someone. Let's look at the hindsight technique. This is looking back at a past event with new knowledge. With the benefit of hindsight, looking back on it now. If I knew then what I know now, I bought a cheap car. With the benefit of hindsight, I should have bought a better one because I spent so much on repairs. If I knew then what I know now, I would have invested in Bitcoin. This shows wisdom. Let's talk about age and time. In my 20s, when I was a teenager, in my prime. Getting on a bit means getting old. My dog is getting on a bit. He walks slowly now. In my prime, I could run a marathon. When I was a teenager, I thought I knew everything. Let's discuss frequency. Once in a blue moon means very rarely. Every now and then means sometimes. From time to time means sometimes. 24/7 means all the time. I only see my brother once in a blue moon because he lives in Australia. I go to the gym from time to time, but not enough. She works 24/7. Using these idioms is much better than just using sometimes or always. Let's talk about money. It was a rip-off means too expensive or bad value. It was a bargain means cheap or good value. I am broke means no money. It cost a fortune means expensive. I bought this dress for $5. It was a total bargain. That restaurant is a rip-off. The food is small and expensive. I can't go out tonight. I'm broke. Let's look at the senses regarding smell. It smelled meaningful, a distinct smell. A foul odor means bad. A fragrant aroma means good, usually coffee or flowers. Mouth-watering means food smell. I walked past the bakery. The smell of fresh bread was mouth-watering. The room had a distinct smell of old books. Let's discuss habits. I have a habit of, I have a habit of biting my nails when I am nervous. I tend to be late. I am prone to getting headaches. This describes your character traits within a story. Let's talk about effort. I gave it my all. I bent over backwards means tried very hard to help. I pulled out all the stops means did everything possible. I tried my best. I bent over backwards to help him, and he didn't even say thank you. We pulled out all the stops for the party. We had music, food, and fireworks. I gave it my all, but I still lost the match. Let's look at simplicity. It is not. Rocket science means it is easy. It is a piece of cake means it is easy. I can do it with my eyes closed. Fixing this computer is not rocket science. Just restart it. Driving this car is a piece of cake. Let's discuss confusion. I couldn't make heads or tails of it means I didn't understand it at all. I was baffled. It was all Greek to me. I looked at the instructions. I couldn't make heads or tails of them. The lecture was all Greek to me. Let's talk about secrets. Keep it under your hat. My lips are sealed. Spill the beans means tell the secret. I have big news, but keep it under your hat. Come on, spill the beans. Who are you dating? Don't worry, my lips are sealed. Let's look at risk. I went out on a limb means took a risk for someone. I put all my eggs in one basket means relied on one thing. It was a shot in the dark means a guess. I went out on a limb and recommended him for the job. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Apply to many universities. I didn't know the answer, so it was a shot in the dark. Let's discuss happiness. On cloud 9, tickled pink, walking on air. When she said yes, I was on cloud 9. My grandma was tickled pink by the flowers. Let's talk about anger. He hit the roof means very angry. He saw red. He blew a fuse. When I told my dad I crashed the car, he hit the roof. She saw red and started shouting. Let's look at being busy. I am swamped. I am tied up. I have a lot on my plate. I can't help you right now. I am swamped with work. Sorry, I am tied up in a meeting. I have a lot on my plate this week. Let's discuss laziness and relaxing. Couch potato, chilling out, taking it easy. I was a total couch potato yesterday. I watched TV for 6 hours. I am just chilling out at home. I'm going to take it easy this weekend. Let's talk about indecision. I am on the fence. I am in two minds. I can't make up my mind. I am on the fence about buying the house. I am in two minds about going to the party. Let's look at memory. It rings a bell means sounds familiar. It slipped my mind means I forgot. I have a memory like a sieve means bad memory. Do you know John Smith? The name rings a bell, but I can't remember his face. I was supposed to call you. I am so sorry, it completely slipped my mind. Let's discuss being correct. You hit the nail on the head means exactly right. Spot on. You are dead right. Your analysis was spot on. You hit the nail on the head with that comment. Let's talk about being wrong. I was way off. I barked up the wrong tree. I got the wrong end of the stick means misunderstood. I thought the party was today, but I was way off. It is next week. I accused him, but I was barking up the wrong tree. It was his brother. I got the wrong end of the stick. I thought you were angry. Finally, let's wrap up this bonus section with a fluency mindset tip. Fluency is not about knowing every word in the dictionary. It is about being comfortable with the words you do know. It is about flexibility. If you don't know the word fence, say the wall made of wood. If you don't know the word furious, say very, very angry. Storytelling is about the connection, not the perfection. Use your face. Use your hands. Use your pauses. Take these idioms like on cloud 9, in the nick of time, and rings a bell, and sprinkle them into your stories like salt on a meal. A little bit adds a lot of flavor. You have now gone through a complete masterclass in storytelling, from the basic first then, finally to the advanced. If I knew then what I know now. You are ready. Go out and paint the world with your words. Welcome back to this special bonus edition of English in Advance with me, your host, Jessica. We have covered so much ground today regarding storytelling, flow, and vocabulary. But I know that when you are out in the real world, you might still have questions. You might face specific situations that we have not covered yet. So in this session, I want to answer some of the most common questions I receive from students just like you. I have collected these questions from our community, and they touch on the deep fears and technical difficulties of speaking English. One very common question I get is this: Jessica, what do I do if I am telling a story and I see the other person looks bored? This is a terrible feeling. You are speaking. You are trying your best, but the listener is looking at their phone or looking around the room. It makes you want to stop talking immediately. My advice here is to use the check-in technique. Stop your story and ask a question. Say something like, "You know what I mean?" or "Am I making sense?" This forces them to come back to the conversation. If they are truly bored, it might be because your story is too long or you are stuck on one detail. So use the magic word "anyway" to fast forward. Say, "Anyway, the point is," and jump to the ending. Do not take it personally. Sometimes people are just tired or distracted. It is not always about your English. It is often about their attention span. Another question I hear often is, "Jessica, how can I tell stories if I am a very shy person? I am introverted and I do not like being the center of attention." This is a beautiful question. Storytelling does not mean being loud. You do not have to be a comedian or an actor. Some of the best storytellers are very quiet. They speak softly, but they choose their words carefully. If you are shy, focus on observation stories. You do not have to tell stories about yourself. Tell stories about what you saw. "I saw a man in the park today feeding the birds." It takes the pressure off you. You are just the camera. You are reporting on the world. Also, practice one-on-one. You do not need to tell stories to a group of 10 people. Just find one person you trust. Eye contact can be intense for shy people, so try telling a story while you are walking side by side with someone. It is much less scary when you are not looking directly at each other. Here is a technical question. "Jessica, I get confused with pronouns. I say he when I mean she. It is so embarrassing. First of all, let me hug you." This is the most common mistake for learners, especially if your native language does not use gendered pronouns in the same way. The listener almost always knows who you are talking about from the context. If you say, "My mother is a doctor, he is very smart," we know you mean she. It does not destroy the story. However, to fix it, you need to slow down. When you introduce a character, take a micro pause. "My sister," pause, "she." Visualize the person. See their face in your mind before you say the pronoun. Make the connection between the image and the word she. Practice this with photos. Look at a photo of a man and say he. Look at a photo of a woman and say she. Do it until it becomes automatic. But please do not stop your story just because of a pronoun slip. Correct it if you catch it and keep going. Let's talk about the 30-day storytelling challenge. I mentioned this briefly before, but I want to walk you through exactly how to do it. You do not need a gym membership for this. You just need your voice. For the first 5 days, I want you to focus on the morning report. Every morning while you are making coffee or brushing your teeth, describe what you are doing in real time. "I am pouring the water. The water is hot. The steam is rising. I am taking the spoon." This connects your physical actions to English verbs. It warms up your brain. It is like stretching before a run. For days 6 to 10, I want you to focus on the memory bank. Every evening, pick one memory from your childhood. It does not have to be a big memory. It could be the smell of your grandmother's kitchen. It could be a toy you loved. Spend 2 minutes describing it out loud. Use the phrase "I remember." "I remember my red bicycle." "I remember how fast it was." This activates your past tense grammar. You will naturally start using was and where and had. For days 11 to 15, we are going to do the opinion piece. Pick a topic you disagree with. Maybe you hate pineapple on pizza. Maybe you think cats are better than dogs. Tell a short story explaining why. I once ate a pineapple pizza and it was soggy. It was a terrible experience. Expressing dislike is actually easier than expressing because we have stronger feelings about it. Use words like actually, personally, and to be honest. For days 16 to 20, I want you to try the future visualization. Tell the story of your life in 5 years. I will be living in a big house. I will be speaking fluent English. I will have a dog named Max. This practices the will and going to structures. It is also very positive for your mindset. When you hear yourself saying these things, you start to believe them. For days 21 to 25, we will do the summary. Watch a short video on YouTube or a scene from a movie. Then pause it and summarize what happened in 3 sentences. The man walked into the bank. He asked for a loan. The banker said no. This is excellent for checking your comprehension and your ability to condense information. You are taking a big story and making it small. This is a key skill for business English. Finally, for the last 5 days, days 26 to 30, I want you to do the dialogue replay. Think of a conversation you had during the day in your native language. Now, try to act it out in English. You play both parts. You say what you said, and then you say what your friend said. Change your voice a little bit. This helps you find the gaps in your vocabulary. You might realize, oh, I do not know how to say plumber in English. Then you can look it up. It makes your learning very relevant to your real life. If you follow this 30-day plan, you will have spoken English for at least a few minutes every single day for a month. That consistency is worth more than 100 hours of sitting in a classroom listening to a teacher. You are building the muscle memory of your mouth. Let's answer another listener question. Jessica, how do I sound more intelligent in English? I feel like a child when I speak because my sentences are so simple. This is a frustration many intermediate learners have. You have complex thoughts, but you have simple grammar. To sound more sophisticated, you do not need big words. You need better connectors. Instead of saying and or but, use words like however, therefore, although, and meanwhile. Compare these 2 stories. Story A is, I went to the store, but it was closed. I went home. I was sad. Story B is, I went to the store. However, it was closed. Therefore, I returned home. Although it was a small problem, I felt disappointed. Story B sounds much more intelligent, right? The facts are the same. The linking words changed the level. Learn to use. Although at the beginning of a sentence, although it was raining, we played football. This creates a complex sentence structure that immediately makes you sound advanced. Another tip for sounding more intelligent is to use adverbs of certainty. Words like definitely, probably, certainly, and possibly. Instead of saying, I will go, say I will definitely go. Instead of saying he is at home, say he is probably at home. These words add nuance. They show that you are calculating the probability. Smart people do not just state facts, they evaluate reality. Let's talk about a fun topic, which is the exaggerated sigh. Sometimes you tell a story not with words, but with sounds. If you are telling a story about a long day, you can stop and let out a big breath. Phew. That sound tells the listener everything. It says, I am tired. It was hard. I am glad it is over. English speakers use a lot of these non-verbal sounds. The tisk sound, clicking your tongue, means you are annoyed or disappointed. The sound means you are thinking or you are skeptical. The means yes, keep going. Using these sounds makes you feel more like a native speaker. It helps you get into the character of an English speaker. I want to address the concept of the hook again, but this time with a specific technique called the in media res. This is a Latin phrase that means in the middle of things. Writers use it all the time. Instead of starting at the beginning, you start in the middle of the action. Normal start is, yesterday I woke up, got dressed, and drove to work. On the way, I saw a fire. In media res start is, there was smoke everywhere. Fire trucks were screaming down the street. I was sitting in my car wondering if I should turn around. That was my morning commute yesterday. See how the second one grabs you? You start with the smoke. You start with the screaming trucks. Then you go back and explain. Try this with your next story. Start with the most exciting moment, then say, let me tell you how I got there. I was standing on the stage, holding the microphone, shaking like a leaf. But let me go back to the beginning. This is a professional storytelling move. Let's talk about handling interruptions from children or pets while you are practicing. Many of you are parents. You are trying to record your daily story and your child comes in screaming. Do not get angry. Narrate the interruption. I was trying to record my English practice, but now my beautiful daughter has entered the room. She is holding a toy. She wants to play. This teaches you flexibility. It teaches you to switch focus without losing your language. Real life is full of interruptions. If you can handle them in English, you are fluent. My cat is walking across my keyboard. He is demanding attention. This is real life English. One very important aspect of flow is contraction. I cannot stress this enough. Native speakers almost always use contractions in stories. Do not say, I do not know. Say, I don't know. Do not say, I have been. Say, I've been. Do not say, he is not. Say, he isn't or he's not. If you use the full form, you sound like a robot or a policeman reading a report. I did not do it. The contraction gives you rhythm. I didn't do it. You've, we've. Practice these sounds. We've been waiting. We've seen it. You'd, he'd. I'd love to go. He'd never say that. Get comfortable with the D sound at the end of the word. It is small, but it changes the grammar completely. I like versus I'd like. Present versus conditional. Let's look at the phrase, it turns out. This is a fantastic phrase for plot twists. I thought he was American. It turns out he is Canadian. I thought the meeting was at 2. It turns out it was at 3. It turns out means the truth was discovered to be. I was worried about the test. It turns out it was very easy. This phrase creates a nice bridge between your expectation and the reality. What about when you want to agree with someone but you are not 100% sure? You can use phrases like, I suppose so or I guess so. Do you think it will rain? I guess so. Is this the right way? I suppose so. This shows a reluctant agreement. It adds flavor. You are not just a yes or no machine. You have opinions and doubts. Let's talk about the word stuff again. We talked about it being vague, but it can also be used to show emotion. I am going through some stuff right now. This means I have personal problems. It is a polite way to say I am sad or stressed without giving details. She has a lot of stuff going on. It implies complexity. I want to give you a visualization for flow. Imagine your speech is a train. The train has to keep moving. If you stop the train completely, which is silence, it takes a lot of energy to start it again. But you can slow the train down. You can go very slowly over a bridge. I was thinking. This is better than I. Stop, was. Stop, thinking. Keep the sound going. Extend the vowels. We, so these stretch sounds act as the glue between your words. They give you time to think without breaking the connection with the listener. Let's talk about quoting movies or songs. This is a great way to bond. If you are telling a story and you say, "I felt like the Terminator, I said, 'I'll be back,'" everyone will laugh. You are using shared culture. It was like that song, "Don't Worry, Be Happy." References make your English feel 3D. It shows you are part of the global conversation. Finally, I want to talk about the concept of the echo. When you are listening to someone, echo their last few words to show you are listening. Speaker says, "I went to the mountains last week." You say, "The mountains?" Speaker says, "Yes, it was beautiful but cold." You say, "Cold?" Speaker says, "Freezing. We had no heater." This echo technique encourages the speaker to continue. It is very easy to do. You just repeat what they said with a question mark. It makes you a fantastic conversationalist because people love to be listened to. We've covered questions about boredom, shyness, pronouns, and intelligence. We have walked through a 30-day challenge. We have looked at hooks, interruptions, contractions, and echoes. You are building a massive library of skills. But remember, a library is useless if you never open the books. You have to open your mouth. Start today with the Day 1 challenge, which is the morning report. I am listening to a podcast. I am learning English. I am feeling motivated. Say it. Believe it. We are going to roll up our sleeves and get to work on the mechanics. We've talked a lot about the what of storytelling, the words, the grammar, the structure. Now, I want to focus on the how, the mechanics, the engine under the hood. Specifically, we need to master the pronunciation of the past tense because 90% of your stories will happen in the past. If you mess up the past tense sounds, the listener gets confused about the timeline. Let's talk about the famous -ed ending. Many students see walked and they say walk ID. They see played and say played. This adds an extra syllable and breaks the flow. There are actually 3 sounds for ed, and mastering them is the key to smooth storytelling. First, we have the T sound. This happens after unvoiced sounds like K, P, S, sh, chi, walked sounds like walked, stopped sounds like stopped, washed sounds like washed, watched sounds like watched. Try to tell a story using only these T verbs. I walked to the shop, stopped at the door, looked inside, and watched the people. It is sharp. It is quick. It is percussive. Second, we have the D sound. This happens after voiced sounds like L, N, V, and vowels. Called sounds like called. Cleaned sounds like cleaned. Arrived sounds like arrived. Played sounds like played. I arrived home, cleaned the room, called my mom, and played some music. This is softer. It flows. Third, and this is the only time we add a syllable, is the id sound. This only happens after T or D. Wanted becomes wanted. Needed becomes needed. Decided becomes decided. I wanted a car, I needed money, so I decided to work. If you say I walked to the store, native speakers hear I walk, ed, to the store. It sounds choppy. Practice this sentence. He looked, T, smiled, D, and shouted, ID. He looked, smiled, and shouted. Mastering this subtle difference will make your storytelling sound immediately more advanced. Now let's talk about the schwa. This is the most common sound in English, the sound. In storytelling, we use it to swallow the unimportant words so the important words pop out. We do not say fish and chips. We say fish and chips. We do not say cup of tea. We say cup a tea. We do not say to the store. We say to the store. This is called reduction. It allows you to speak faster without actually moving your mouth faster. You are just skipping sounds. Story example is, I went to the park for a bit of fresh air. If you pronounce every word perfectly, I went to the park for a bit of fresh air. You sound like a robot. Storytelling requires rhythm. Da 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 da. I went to the park for a bit of fresh air. The stress is on park and air. The rest is just the schwa sound connecting them. Let's move to a mistake clinic. I want to fix 3 very common errors that ruin stories. Error number 1 is, I am agree. In a story, you might say, my friend said let's go and I was agree. No, agree is a verb. Correct is I agreed. He suggested pizza and I agreed. Error number 2 is I am boring versus I am bored. This is a classic. I was boring means you are not an interesting person. I was bored means you have nothing to do. Story is, the movie was boring, so I was bored. The class was boring, so the students were bored. Remember, ing is the cause. Ed is the feeling. Error number 3 is, I have 25 years. In English, we are our age. We do not have it. Story is, when I was 25, not when I had 25. I was 25 years old when I met him. Let's try a genre switching exercise. This is a fantastic drill for advanced learners. We will take one boring sentence like I lost my keys. First, tell it like a drama. Use emotional words. I reached into my pocket and my heart sank. Empty. The keys were gone. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I was locked out, alone in the cold. Now tell it like a comedy. Use exaggeration and silly mistakes. I patted my pockets like I was doing the Macarena. Nothing. I checked my bag. I checked my hat. I even checked my socks. Who puts keys in their socks? Me, apparently. But no keys. I look like a crazy person dancing on the street. Now tell it like a thriller. Use suspense and short sentences. It was dark. The street was silent. I needed to get inside. I reached for my keys. Gone. I heard footsteps behind me. I checked again. Still gone. The footsteps got closer. I was trapped. Same event of lost keys, but 3 completely different feelings. Practice this. Take a simple event like cooking dinner or missing the bus and try to switch the genre. It forces you to access different parts of your vocabulary. Let's talk about the power of silence again, but specifically regarding the ellipsis. An ellipsis is the ... at the end of a sentence. In speaking, you create an ellipsis by dragging out the last word and raising your pitch slightly. I opened the box, and inside there was, you wait. You let the listener lean in. A spider. He told me he loved me, but you wait. I didn't believe him. Leaving that space is a power move. It shows you are confident enough to hold the floor without speaking. Let's discuss false friends in storytelling. These are words that look like words in your language but mean something different. Actually does not mean currently, it means in reality. A false story would be, actually, I am working in a bank when you mean currently. Sensible does not mean sensitive. My brother is very sensible means he makes good, logical decisions. My brother is very sensitive means he cries easily. Imagine the confusion if you mix these up in a story. Sympathetic does not mean nice. It means you feel bad for someone else's problems. The doctor was very sympathetic, means he understood my pain. Let's talk about the double negative. In standard English, we avoid this, but in casual storytelling or slang, you might hear it. However, for you as a learner, avoid it to stay clear. I didn't do nothing is incorrect. I didn't do anything is correct. I saw nobody is correct. I didn't see anybody is correct. I didn't see nobody is incorrect because it implies you saw someone. Story sentence is, I walked into the room and I didn't see anybody. clear and simple. Let's move to alternative adjectives for said. We talked about this, but let's drill it. If someone is giving information, they stated. If someone is giving a warning, they warned. If someone is admitting a crime, they confessed. I didn't eat the cake, he stated. Be careful, he warned. Okay, I ate the cake, he confessed. Using these verbs acts as a shortcut. You don't have to say he admitted it sadly, you just say he confessed. Let's talk about the rule of the specific detail. General is I bought some flowers. Specific is I bought a bouquet of yellow tulips. General is we drank wine. Specific is we drank a cheap bottle of red wine. General is he drove a car. Specific is he drove a rusty old truck. The specific detail makes the story stick. We can see yellow tulips. We can't really see flowers because it is too vague. When you practice your 1-minute story, try to change one general noun into a specific noun. Change. I ate fruit to I ate a juicy peach. Let's discuss the callback. A callback is when you mention something at the end of the story that you mentioned at the beginning. It makes the story feel like a perfect circle. Beginning is I have always hated clowns. They terrify me. Middle is telling the story about going to the circus and getting lost. End is, and guess who helped me find my mom? A clown. So I guess they aren't so bad after all. You started with hating clowns and ended with clowns aren't bad. This structure is very satisfying for the listener. Try to plan your ending before you start. Let's talk about handling numbers. In stories, we often round numbers up or down to keep the flow. It cost $9.95 becomes. It cost about $10. It took 43 minutes becomes. It took nearly an hour. There were 18 people becomes. There were a couple dozen people. We do not need the exact data in a story. We need the feeling of the number. It cost a fortune. It was dirt cheap. I waited forever. Let's look at the pivot word. However. I wanted to go. However, I was tired. The food was good. However, the service was slow. However is a bit formal. In storytelling, mind you is a great informal alternative. The food was good. Mind you, the service was slow. He is a nice guy. Mind you, he can be a bit lazy. Mind you introduces a contrasting detail that is important to consider. It is a great car. Mind you, it uses a lot of gas. Let's discuss describing personalities. He is the salt of the earth means a very good, honest person. He is a dark horse means someone with secret talents. She is a loose cannon means unpredictable, maybe dangerous. He is a wet blanket means someone who ruins the fun. Story is, we wanted to go to the party, but John is such a wet blanket, he complained the whole time. But Mary, she is the salt of the earth, she tried to cheer him up. These idioms paint a picture of the social dynamic instantly. Let's talk about the rhetorical buildup. It wasn't just rain. It wasn't just a storm. It was a hurricane. He wasn't just rude. He wasn't just mean. He was a monster. I wasn't just hungry. I wasn't just starving. I was famished. This not A, not B, but C structure is powerful. It tells the listener, your first guess is too small. Your second guess is too small. The reality was huge. Let's discuss avoiding repetition. If you say, I went, it is boring. Vary your sentence openers. Start with the subject like I went to the store. Start with the purpose, like to buy milk, I went to the store. Start with time, like yesterday I went to the store. Start with an adverb like quickly, I went to the store. Start with a participle, like hoping to find milk. I went to the store. Practice this. Take a sentence and rewrite it 5 ways. Let's talk about the use of so to summarize. So, to make a long story short. So there I was. So what happened was, so is a marker that says, pay attention, here comes the main point. I missed the alarm, I spilled my coffee, I lost my keys. So basically, I was late. Let's look at describing success. I nailed it means did it perfectly. I pulled it off means succeeded in a difficult situation. It was a smash hit. I scraped through means just barely succeeded. Story is I didn't study for the test. I thought I would fail, but somehow I scraped through with a C. Or I practiced my speech for weeks. When I got on stage, I nailed it. Let's talk about describing failure. I blew it means I made a mistake. It went pear-shaped means it went wrong. It was a flop. I messed up. I had a chance to ask her out, but I blew it. I got too nervous. We planned a surprise party, but it went pear-shaped when she came home early. Let's discuss distance. It is a stone's throw away, means very close. It is in the middle of nowhere means very far or isolated. It is just around the corner. I live a stone's throw from the beach. His house is in the middle of nowhere. You need a map to find it. Let's talk about certainty. I reckon, I have a hunch. I bet he is late again. I reckon it will rain. I have a hunch that we are going to win. These are conversational ways to say I think. Let's look at the visual check. When you tell a story, visualize it like a movie in your head. If you can see it, you can describe it. If your mind is blank, your words will be boring. Close your eyes. See the kitchen. Is it messy? Is it clean? What color are the walls? I walked into the kitchen. The white walls were bright. There were dirty dishes piled in the sink. You only mentioned white walls and dirty dishes because you saw them in your mind. Let's talk about speed. Native speakers speak in chunks. I don't know what you want is 2 chunks. I don't know is 1 sound block. What you want is the second. Practice saying common phrases as 1 word. How are you? What do you do? Where are you from? I don't think so. See you later. Have a good one. If you say, see you later, it sounds cold. See you later sounds friendly. Let's discuss the tag question. It is hot, isn't it? You are coming, aren't you? He is nice, isn't he? They were happy, weren't they? Using tag questions at the end of story sentences keeps the listener involved. It was a beautiful day, wasn't it? And we decided to go for a walk. He was acting strange, wasn't he? I knew something was wrong. Let's talk about giving permission to interrupt. Stop me if you have heard this one. Feel free to jump in. Correct me if I am wrong. Stop me if you have heard this one. But did I tell you about the time I met a celebrity? Correct me if I am wrong, but didn't we go there last year? Let's wrap up this workshop with the daily observation. Your homework for tomorrow is to observe 1 tiny thing. A leaf falling, a cat sleeping, a child laughing, and narrate it in your head with 3 adjectives. The orange, crinkly leaf fell slowly. The fat, fluffy cat slept peacefully. The small, happy child laughed loudly. This micro-practice builds the neural pathways for descriptive flow. We are going to explore a concept I call conversational elasticity. Imagine an accordion. You can squeeze it small or you can pull it wide open. A master storyteller can do the same thing with a story. Sometimes you only have 10 seconds to tell a story because the bus is arriving. Sometimes you have 20 minutes because you are sitting at a dinner party. You need to be able to take the same event and shrink it or expand it depending on the situation. This is true fluency. It is the ability to adapt. Let's practice the shrink first. Imagine you went to a wedding, the cake fell over, and the bride cried. That is the event. If you are in a rush, you need the 10-second version. It sounds like this. I went to a wedding last weekend and it was a disaster. The cake actually fell over and the bride was in tears. It was crazy. Boom. Done. You gave the location, the conflict, and the emotion. You stripped away all the adjectives and the background. You just gave the skeleton. Now let's look at the expand. You are at a cafe with your best friend. You have all the time in the world. Now you add the meat to the skeleton. Last weekend, I went to this beautiful wedding in the countryside. The decorations were stunning, all white and gold. Everyone was happy. We were waiting for the cake-cutting ceremony. The cake was 5 tiers high, a massive tower of vanilla and cream. The waiter was carrying it out, and he looked a bit wobbly. Suddenly, he tripped on a wire. It was like slow motion. The cake wobbled, leaned, and then crash. It smashed onto the floor. There was silence. Then, the bride started sobbing. We felt so bad for her, but honestly, it was kind of memorable. Do you see the difference? In the second version, I added sensory details like white and gold and vanilla and cream. I added the slow motion feeling. I added the silence. Learning to expand is about asking yourself questions while you speak. What did it look like? How did it feel? What happened right before? Practice taking a small sentence like I burned my toast and turning it into a 2-minute tragedy about your breakfast. Now let's talk about tone shifting. This is an advanced skill where you change the emotion of the story. You can tell a sad story in a funny way or a funny story in a serious way. This depends on your vocabulary choices. Let's take the story of missing a flight. The sad version is, I arrived at the gate and the doors were closed. I felt devastated. I just sat on the floor and cried. I felt so lonely and helpless. It was the worst start to my vacation. The funny version is, I arrived at the gate and the doors were closed. Of course, just my luck. I looked like a lost puppy sitting on the floor. I probably looked ridiculous. I had to laugh because otherwise I would have screamed. It was a classic start to my chaotic life. In the funny version, I used phrases like, just my luck and classic start. I laughed at myself. I described myself as a lost puppy, which is cute and funny rather than lonely, which is sad. Try to take a bad day you had and retell it as a comedy. It is actually very therapeutic. Let's discuss the power of the historical present. Usually we tell stories in the past tense. I went, he said, but sometimes to make it sound very exciting and immediate, we switch to the present tense. So I am walking down the street, right? And this guy comes up to me and he says, even though it happened yesterday, I am using am walking and comes and says. This puts the listener right there in the moment with you. It is very common in spoken English, especially for jokes or intense action stories. There I am, standing in the rain, and suddenly the bus pulls up. You can practice this. Retell your morning routine using the present continuous. So, I am making coffee and the phone rings. It makes the story feel faster and more energetic. Let's talk about hedging. Hedging is when you are not 100% direct. It makes you sound polite and humble. Instead of saying, that is wrong, you say, I am not sure that is entirely correct. In storytelling, we use hedging to sound less aggressive. It was a bit of a strange situation. He was kind of rude. It wasn't exactly what I expected. Kind of, sort of, a bit, not exactly. These are your softeners. I sort of lost my temper. This sounds better than I got angry. It suggests it was a small loss of temper even if it was big. Let's discuss the rule of contrast. Stories love contrast. High and low, fast and slow, loud and quiet. The city was loud, but the park was silent. He is usually very shy, but that night he was the life of the party. I expected it to be cheap, but it cost a fortune. Using but to create a pivot point is essential. It surprises the brain. I thought the exam would be impossible, but actually it was a piece of cake. I thought I would hate the opera, but to my surprise, I loved it. To my surprise is a great phrase. It flags the contrast for the listener. We also need to talk about attribution. How do you say who said what without being boring? Instead of, he said, she said, he said, try using action tags. I don't like it. He crossed his arms. Please help me. She looked at the floor. Let's go. He grabbed his keys. You do not even need the word said. The action tells us who is speaking. Where have you been? My mom tapped her foot. We know the mom is speaking because she is the one tapping her foot. This makes your story flow much better because you are removing the repetitive said and replacing it with visual actions. Let's talk about the hook question. We discussed hooks, but the hook question is specific. It asks the listener to imagine a situation. What would you do if you found $1 million? Imagine you could fly. That is how I felt. Have you ever been so scared you couldn't move? Starting with a question forces the listener to engage their brain. They have to answer yes or no or I don't know inside their head. Now you have their attention, then you deliver the story. Have you ever been so scared you couldn't move? Well, last night I saw a spider. Let's look at the reveal. This is when you hold back one piece of information until the end. I went on a date. He was handsome. He was funny. He was rich. He was perfect. There was just one problem. He was my cousin's ex-boyfriend. If you said I went on a date with my cousin's ex at the beginning, the story is over. By saving it for the end, you build suspense. I found a wallet. It had tons of cash. I looked at the ID. You will never guess whose wallet it was. It was my boss's. Let's discuss sounding natural with get. We covered get, but let's look at the get passive. I got fired. I got paid. I got invited. I got attacked. I got chosen. This is much more common in stories than I was fired or I was chosen. It sounds more dynamic. I got stuck in the elevator. I got caught in the rain. Practice using got plus a past participle. I got lost. I got married. I got bored. Let's talk about vivid verbs. Instead of walked, use strolled, trudged, marched, or wandered. I trudged home in the rain. This tells us you were tired and sad. I strolled through the park. This tells us you were relaxed. I marched into the office. This tells us you were ready for business. One verb can replace 3 adjectives. Trudged is better than walked slowly and sadly. Let's look at the echo effect for emphasis. It was a long, long time ago. He was a very, very bad man. I ran and ran and ran. Repeating the word intensifies the meaning. It is simple but effective. It was far, far away. I am really, really sorry. Let it discuss handling awkward silences. If you finish your story and nobody speaks, do not panic. Ask a turnover question. Has that ever happened to you? What do you think? Have you ever been there? Anyway, that is my crazy story. What about you? How was your weekend? You turn the conversation over to them. You pass the ball. This saves you from the awkward silence. Let's talk about the non-story. Sometimes you start telling a story and realize it is boring. It has no point. You can save it by making a joke about how boring it is. And, well, actually, that is the end of the story. I told you it wasn't very exciting. And then I went home. The end. Sorry, not exactly an action movie, is it? Acknowledging that the story was dull actually makes you charming. It shows you have self-awareness. Let's look at describing relationships. We are like two peas in a pod means very similar. We are like oil and water means very different. We go way back means known each other a long time. He is my partner in crime means best friend who does fun things with you. I went out with Jessica. She's my partner in crime, and we ended up singing karaoke. Let's talk about emphasizing the negative. I didn't sleep a wink. I didn't eat a bite. I didn't say a word. I didn't spend a dime. These phrases emphasize the zero amount. The hotel was so noisy. I didn't sleep a wink. I was so nervous I didn't eat a bite. Let's discuss the thing pattern. The funny thing is, the strange thing was, the best thing about it, the worst thing was, the annoying thing is. This helps you structure your thoughts. I lost my job. The strange thing is, I feel relieved. The annoying thing is, I knew it would happen. Let's talk about making comparisons. It was more of a shed than a house. It was less of a holiday and more of a nightmare. He is not so much a boss as a dictator. This more X than Y structure is very sophisticated. It refines your description. The soup was more of a stew than a soup. It was very thick. Let's look at the generic you. In stories, we often use you to mean people in general. You know when you walk into a room and you forget why you are there? I don't mean you specifically, I mean anyone. It was one of those days where you just want to stay in bed. Using you draws the listener in. It assumes they have the same experience. You know how it is when you are tired. Let's talk about describing layouts. On the left, on the right, in the corner, opposite the door, just past the... When describing a room or a scene, give spatial markers. I walked in. On the left was the bar. On the right was the stage. In the corner, I saw my friends. This helps the listener build the 3D model in their head. Let's discuss qualifiers. Quite rather pretty fairly. It was quite good. It was pretty expensive. It was rather strange. Fairly easy. These words soften the adjective. They are very common in British English. It was a rather difficult situation. Let's talk about the rhetorical correction. I was angry. No, I was furious. It was big. No, it was massive. I liked him. No, I loved him. You say one word, then you correct yourself with a stronger word. This shows the intensity growing in your mind. I was scared. No, I was terrified. Let's look at giving examples. For instance, take my brother, for example. Such as, I love spicy food, like I put hot sauce on everything. He is very lazy. Take yesterday, for example. He didn't get out of bed until noon. Using concrete examples proves your point. Let's talk about summarizing emotions. To say I was angry is an understatement. To say I was happy is putting it mildly. Words cannot describe how tired I was. I was speechless. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I nearly fell off my chair. Let's discuss frequency of action. Constantly, non-stop, day in, day out, every single day. He complains constantly. It rained non-stop for 3 days. I work day in, day out. Let's talk about change of state. It turned out well. It ended up being fun. It grew on me means I started to like it. I came to realize I didn't like the song at first, but it grew on me. We got lost, but it ended up being a great adventure. Let's look at the whatever attitude. Sometimes you want to show you don't care. Whatever, it is what it is. No big deal, no sweat. I failed the test. Whatever. I will try again. It is what it is. I can't change it. Let's talk about encouraging the listener. Guess what? You'll never believe this. Are you ready for this? Sit down for this one. These pre-starters warn the listener that the story is big. Sit down for this one. I just quit my job. Finally, let's focus on the smile. You can hear a smile. When you tell a happy story, physically smile. It changes the shape of your mouth and the tone of your voice. It makes you sound friendlier. When you tell a sad story, drop your face. It makes you sound serious. Your face is the conductor of your voice orchestra. Practice saying hello with a smile and hello with a frown. Record it. You will hear the difference. In this session, I want to talk about how to use storytelling as a social bridge. Often we get stuck in small talk. We talk about the weather. We talk about the traffic. It is boring. How do you move from "it is raining" to a real connection? You use a bridge story. A bridge story is a tiny anecdote that connects the current situation to a personal experience. Small talk is, "It is raining again." Bridge is, "I know." It reminds me of my trip to London last year. It rained every single day, but we actually loved it because we spent all our time in cozy museums. Have you ever been to London? Do you see the bridge? You took the rain, which is boring, and moved it to London, which is interesting. Then you asked a question. Now you are not talking about weather, you are talking about travel. This is how you escape the trap of boring conversation. Let's talk about the compliment story. Instead of just saying, "I like your shoes," tell a mini story about why. "I love your shoes." I have been looking for a pair like that for months. I saw some in a magazine, but I could never find them in a store. Where did you get them? This is much more powerful. It shows you genuinely care. It gives the listener a chance to help you. "I like your haircut. It really suits you. I tried to cut my hair short once and I looked like a mushroom. You pull it off perfectly." This self-deprecating story about looking like a mushroom makes the compliment feel honest and friendly. Now, let's focus on a very specific type of story, which is the expectation versus reality story. This is one of the most common and funny ways to speak in English. We use the phrase "supposed to." It was supposed to be a relaxing holiday, but it rained the whole time. I was supposed to meet John at 5, but he didn't show up until 7. This car is supposed to be fast. He is supposed to be an expert. Using "supposed to" instantly sets up a conflict. I joined a cooking class. It was supposed to be for beginners, but everyone else was a professional chef. I felt so out of place. I was supposed to be making a souffle, but I made a mess. Practice this. Think of something that disappointed you. The movie was supposed to be scary, but it was funny. The food was supposed to be spicy, but it was bland. Let's talk about the wish. Stories about what we want to change. "I wish I had studied harder. I wish I could fly. I wish you were here. I wish I hadn't eaten that second burger. Now I feel sick. I wish I knew how to play the piano. I would play every day." Using wish allows you to share your dreams and your regrets. "I wish I had traveled more when I was young. I stayed in my hometown too long. If I could do it again, I would backpack across Asia." This opens up a deep conversation about life choices. Let's discuss handling awkward questions. Sometimes people ask things that are too personal. You can tell a distraction story. Question is, "When are you getting married?" Distraction story is, "Oh, marriage. That reminds me of my cousin's wedding last week. It was crazy. The DJ didn't show up and we had to use a phone for music. It was hilarious." Do you like weddings? You didn't answer the question about your marriage. You pivoted to a wedding and then asked them a question. This is a social ninja move. It protects your privacy without being rude. Let's look at the used to versus be used to trap. This is a grammar point, but essential for storytelling clarity. I used to drive means I drove in the past, not now. I am used to driving means it is normal or easy for me. Story A is I used to live in a noisy city. Now I live in the quiet country. Story B is I moved to New York. At first the noise was terrible, but now I am used to it. I can sleep through anything. Make sure you know the difference. I used to wake up early. I am getting used to waking up early. Let's talk about advanced time idioms. In the blink of an eye means very fast. Donkey's years means a very long time. Once upon a time is for fairy tales. At the crack of dawn means very early morning. Until the cows come home means for a long time. My children grew up in the blink of an eye. I haven't seen him for donkey's years. We got up at the crack of dawn to catch the flight. You can argue until the cows come home, but I won't change my mind. These idioms add flavor. In the blink of an eye is very poetic for sad or nostalgic stories. Let's discuss the if it weren't for structure. This is for giving credit or blaming. If it weren't for you, I would be lost. If it weren't for the rain, we would be at the beach. If it hadn't been for the traffic, I would have been on time. I got the promotion. If it weren't for my mentor, I never would have applied. She pushed me to do it. This shows gratitude and humility. Let's talk about comparing people. He is the spitting image of his father means looks exactly like. They're like chalk and cheese means very different. She takes after her mother means has similar personality or looks. My brother and I are like chalk and cheese. He likes sports, I like books, but he is the spitting image of me. People think we are twins. Chalk and cheese is a great idiom because chalk is dry and white, cheese is soft and yellow, totally different. Let's look at softening opinions with find. Instead of, the movie was boring, say I found the movie a bit boring. Instead of he is rude, say I find him a bit aggressive. I find makes it subjective. It is your experience, not a universal fact. I found the exam quite difficult. I find this city very energetic. Let's discuss the no matter structure. No matter what happens, no matter how hard I try, no matter where I go, no matter how hard I try, I can't cook rice. I always burn it. I will love you no matter what. No matter where I go, I always miss home. This shows persistence or unconditional situations. Let's talk about describing trends. It is all the rage means very popular. It is going out of style. It is making a comeback. Vinyl records are making a comeback. Everyone wants them now. That hairstyle is all the rage these days. Writing letters is going out of style, which is sad. Let's look at the degree modifiers. Somewhat, slightly, extremely, totally, utterly. I was somewhat confused. I was utterly devastated. It was slightly annoying. Utterly is a strong word. Utterly ridiculous. Utterly beautiful. Use it for big emotions. Let's talk about avoid in very. Instead of very good, say outstanding. Instead of very bad, say awful or dreadful. Instead of very small, say tiny. Instead of very big, say huge or enormous. Instead of very hot, say boiling. Story is the room was tiny. The heat was boiling. The food was awful. It was a dreadful experience. This is much better than the room was very small. It was very hot. The food was very bad. Let's discuss the what if game. This is great for conversation. What if we miss the train? What if it rains? What if you win? I was worrying about everything. What if I fail? What if they laugh? My friend told me to stop playing the what if game. Let's talk about using literally for emphasis. Native speakers misuse this word all the time. I literally died laughing, but you didn't die. He literally exploded with anger. Used correctly, it means actually. Used in stories, it usually means figuratively, but strongly. I was literally starving. Use this carefully. In formal writing, avoid it. In casual stories, it adds drama. Let's look at describing luck. I lucked out means got lucky. It was a fluke means accidental success. Touch wood means hoping for luck. I lucked out with my roommate. She is amazing. I scored 100%, but it was a fluke. I guessed the answers. I haven't been sick all year. Touch wood. Let's discuss giving up control. I left it in fate's hands. I went with the flow. I let the chips fall where they may. I didn't prepare. I just went with the flow. I told the truth and let the chips fall where they may. Going with the flow is a very popular concept in English culture. It means being relaxed and accepting what happens. Let's talk about the conclusion signal. To wrap things up, all in all, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, at the end of the day, family is what matters. All in all, it was a good trip. When all is said and done, I don't regret it. These phrases signal deep wisdom and the end of the story. Finally, let's talk about silence as a weapon. If someone asks a rude question or if you want to create drama, just stop talking. Look at them. Count to 3. He asked me if I stole the money. Pause. I looked him in the eye. Pause. And I walked away. The pauses tell the story better than the words. You have now added social strategy, awkwardness management, and advanced idioms to your toolkit. You are not just speaking English, you are navigating the English-speaking world. You have the power to bridge gaps, soften blows, and paint pictures. Go use it. Thank you so much for joining me on this long and detailed journey today on English in Advance. I hope you found this deep dive into storytelling helpful. I really enjoyed sharing these tips with you. I know it was a lot of information, but remember, you can always listen again. You can pause, rewind, and practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a lesson. Hit the like button to help this video reach more English learners like you. And I have a special request for the comments section today. I want you to write a very short story, just 3 sentences. Tell me something that happened to you this week. Use the structure we learned. Start with one day or last week. I will read your stories and give you feedback. I cannot wait to read what you write. Also, share this podcast with your friends who are learning English. Maybe you can practice telling stories to each other. Challenge each other. Who can tell the funniest story? Who can tell the scariest story? Learning together is always more fun. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your dedication to learning. You are doing a fantastic job. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep shining. I am Jessica, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, take care and happy storytelling. Goodbye.